Secure your tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a rocky mountain high, get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners, and settle down snugly at mile marker 420 in colorful Colorado. It is Sunday, January 24th, Monday, January 25th, for those of you across the pond and beyond. Welcome to We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. I'm so glad you guys could join us this evening. I'm your host, TessaTNT, and I hope you guys have had an awesome weekend so far. Mine's been pretty laid back, relaxing, and I've been taking advantage of my days off and sleeping most of the day. I love it. So if you're listening right now, you're listening on Spreaker.com. You can also find us on Twitter, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iTunes, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Tumblr, YouTube, SoundCloud, TuneIn Radio, Deezer, as well as Podcast Addict. And then on Saturday nights, we're simulcast from KPNL Radio, which you can find at kpnl-db.com. So tonight, unfortunately, Mr. Richard Case could not make it due to health issues. We were hoping, being that this is the third time we've tried to book in a year, that the third time would be a charm, but we're going to work something out with him. He's in the UK and he's got to stick to a pretty strict sleep schedule, so I'm hoping he feels better. I know he was sick yesterday and today, so hopefully we'll get something worked out eventually. Hopefully we'll get him in here next weekend or something, even if we have to pre-record, and I hate doing that because then you guys can't call in or ask questions in the chat room. Speaking of chat room, hey brave Sir Robin, good to see you over there. So unfortunately, we've had another epic loss. Mr. Larry King from Larry King Live has passed away, and I found this article, which is from the Washington Post, and it's written by Hank Stuver, but it's titled, "Larry King's Long Run Made the Case That There's No Such Thing as a Dumb Question." The only dumb question for me is the question you don't ask. So Larry King's vintage microphone, the RCA Type 77-D, that referenced his rise as a radio man, was a prop that worked as a powerful symbol of both past and present in the relentlessly evolving media age. The microphone was a security blanket for everyone involved, for King, for his 60,000 plus viewers and interview subjects, and for the viewers of his nightly CNN talk show, once touted by the network to a number of 1 billion or so worldwide. The microphone indicated that King, who died on Saturday, which was last night, at the age of 87, having lived most of his life as a persona more than a person, and perhaps outliving the era that made him, wanted the whole world to hear what his guests had to say. The microphone didn't stand for posterity or nostalgia so much as a visual representation of the major media moment, the heat of notoriety in its full and often fleeting flash. The microphone acknowledged the need to ask and answer the great mysteries of life, the scandals, the personal struggles, the rises and falls, the regrets in real time. Mostly, the microphone stood for an increasingly rare virtue, listening. Listening and its normal, nearly extinct counterpart, a genuine, unflagging curiosity about someone other than yourself. The microphone, like the man hunched over it, imparted a corny notion of importance, an attempt to lend authority over the still nascent cable feed of the 1980s. The microphone made all Larry King Live interviews seem like a great get, a worthy exclusive, a hot insight, something you'd better watch if you wanted to keep up. King's life could be written as one of man's determination to keep up, for an audience that always knew he was pretty much winging it and loved him for it. I love winging it. I used to, when I first started in radio, write down all these questions and ponder on it for a day or two beforehand, sometimes hours beforehand, and ask from there, but you never have a genuine or free-flowing conversation, I feel, when you do stuff like that. So kudos to Mr. King for that. Some of King's skits were better than others, of course. Not every night could have Marlon Brando. Not every night could feature Israeli Prime Minister Yaquz Rabin, Palestine Liberation Organization leader Yasser Arafat, and Jordan's King Hussein, historically united on the same show in 1995. Not every night could Vladimir Putin or Ronald Reagan, Lady Gaga or Muhammad Ali, Miss Piggy and Kermit, Paul and Ringo, but his show was invariably, relentlessly topical. It was broad in a time of wondrous broadness before the disrupting rise of the niche market. To be sitting at the table on CNN's Larry King Live, just you, him, and the big old mic, was proof that one had truly arrived. The suspenders, you can't forget those. He didn't even need them. He just liked the way they looked. The odd questions, why? King wanted to know. His favorite question, because that's all any of us ever really want to know, why? During his 25-year reign on CNN, especially in the years roughly bookended by the 1994 killing of Nicole Brown Simpson and the 2009 death of Michael Jackson, Larry King Live was a necessary and vital stop on the way to one's public judgment. More than one celebrity used his show as a form of recompense, coming to him dirty and damaged with the hope of leaving clean. Others used it as an opportunity to show their more vulnerable side in a calculated way. Most used him as a means to promote their latest film or album to gin up some buzz. No matter what brought them to Larry King Live, it was understood that the questions would be coming from a place of genuine wonder rather than showy intellect. King was a singular personality, a mutation of the common man, a New Yorker, unafraid to just ask the question. The effect was a successful mixing of the draft with the deft. When news of his death spread Saturday, much of the immediate tribute came in the form of defense of King's mastery of the dumb question, and rightly so. Most reporters eventually figure out that the dumb question is a powerful tool of inquiry. Kind people know it, too, and still practice the art. In its disarming way, the dumb question produces answers that the subject isn't tired of answering. It turns the interview into a conversation. It invites rather than antagonizes. What's worse than an interviewer who tries to cram everything they already know into the question, you are all too nice to name a prime example, but I'm not Chuck Todd. King would often boast about not boning up on the details of a subject's life and work before an interview. He trudged confidently into the emotional and factual blind. It could seem rude and even socially inept, but the viewer identified with it. At a time when we are so busy whatabouting one another with instant fact checks, maybe we'd get along better if we stopped to ask a dumb question or two. His dumb questions, of course, produced a legendary achieve of laughable moments. In one often shared clip from 2007, he asked Jerry Seinfeld about the end of Seinfeld. Was it canceled? You think I was canceled? Seinfeld replied, easily taking such delicious bait for a quick riff. Do you know who I am? 75 million viewers on the last episode. It's telling that CNN was never quite able to find the world's next Larry King after he left the network in 2010. Everyone who knows too much has too much to say. There's no room anymore for a show where a seasoned personality blunders his or her way around and through the zeitgeist on behalf of an audience that blunders a bit too. Cable news now assumes that the viewer is faster and smarter and has spent a good chunk of the day on Twitter. The life cycle of news and scandal and personality now moves at 2 or 3 times the speed of Larry King, who, in his era, was believed to be among the fastest, earliest responders. He was in no mood to ever fall behind, and he seemed to care not if the public saw him as a doddering artifact. Who better to ask why than the strange old man who has been married 8 times and says anything that pops into his mind? He moved online with a show called Larry King Now, and consider the many meanings and differences between the words live and now with 21st century implications. He tweeted naturally, having been there, done that, with his often bizarre 3-dot column of random observations in USA Today. As health issues dragged him further down, he was itching to launch a podcast. He was afraid of dying, or not afraid so much as desperately curious. Being interviewed by Mike Wallace in 1992, King seemed fixated on the idea that we are but mere blips in the universe. Where do we go when we die? What's next? Mortality and the afterlife came up on Larry King Live, starting in the 1990s and early 2000s when some of his greatest gets, Sinatra, Brando, Nixon, Reagan, headed for the big exit door. He had numerous on-air conversations about death and the afterlife with his friend, Tammy Faye Messner, the heavily McQuilliged televangelist who practically died on his show, wasting away from cancer before everyone's eyes in 2007. A few nights before her death, she was back on Larry King Live, weighing 65 pounds by her estimate, insisting to King that something waited for us on the other side. He asked Tammy Faye if she believed in heaven. "You know, I do," she replied, "and I genuinely want to see you in heaven someday." King was never sure, often telling people he relied on the maybe, maybe not eschatological stance of his Jewish background. Still, it's fitting to imagine him loosed in that great cocktail party in the sky, reacquainted with so many of the bold-faced names he'd interviewed in this realm, asking dumb question after dumb question, with all eternity to get the answer. So, Larry King Live, I just really love that guy. He did such a good job, and I love that he just flew by the seat of his pants and liked to ask those different questions. So, on this show tonight, if any of you would like to call in, feel free to do so at 970-335-9596. Or you can get a hold of me on Facebook if we're Facebook contacts. But, feel free to do so. I'm just saying my hellos in the chat room real quick before we move on. There's a couple things that I sent myself this week that I hope to get back to. Oh man, this one is a video. No more trips to the gas station or corner store to buy a Powerball. Don't do it. I don't get into Powerball or lottery. I don't have that sort of luck. Okay. So these things I sent to myself, I think I just wanted to refer back to for my own personal knowledge. I think a few of them I wanted to share on my pages on Facebook or Twitter or whatnot. But I thought I had an article or two in here, but I'm seeing videos, and we could play the videos if we named them off or whatnot, but I don't know if I want to get into the whole COVID and whatnot. So something massive detected. Okay. This one might be a giddy. I have to wait for this ad. Okay, so this is a 8-minute video, and this is by, let's go over here, Unexplained Mysteries. And since I dropped my phone in the cat water the other night, I have to manually go into the phone to turn it up. I can still turn it down, but the turn up button doesn't quite work. But here it says, someone just reported that something massive was detected by the International Space Station tracker. Let's see what they have to say.
When you think of space.
Oh no, I accidentally, dang it. Damn fumbling fingers. Don't! Come on. Alright, let's try again. Take 2.
When you think of space, you might think of things like planets and galaxies. But many of us have thought about whether or not life exists out there in the vastness of space. It's a question that's been asked time and time again. Are we alone in the universe? NASA scientists have said there's over 100 billion planets in the Milky Way galaxy alone, and there's hundreds of millions of galaxies, all teeming with millions or billions of planets. This makes the likelihood of there being life in our universe very high. This is why NASA and other space agencies are now making it their goal to visit various systems in the hopes of finding life. It's likely it will happen. The question is when and how long will it take? For all we know, there could be life only a couple of million miles away, and when you're talking about space, billions of miles is a very small distance. However, there's some people who have captured interesting photos throughout the years, and say that these help prove that we're not alone in the universe. One of my subscribers sent me this photograph, and said that it was taken alongside the International Space Station. They managed to quickly snap a photograph of the strange object, but couldn't explain what it was. At first they speculated that it may have been a satellite, but then thought it was likely too close to be one. I shared this image to a few groups to get their opinions. Some said the object in question doesn't look like a piece of space junk. Going on to say it has sharp edges and even looks to be in the shape of a triangle. Others carried on from this and said that is either producing light, or light's bouncing off the object which allows us to see it, also stating that it's too detailed to be a random piece of space debris. What's interesting about these types of photographs is that there's many like this. UFO researchers have been vocal about the fact that the International Space Station is actually a hotspot for UFO activity, and that every year many strange objects can be seen around the space station cameras. Sometimes these objects around the cameras are not seen for long, as they can be seen making a quick exit, while others can be seen zipping past at extremely high speeds. Skeptics who have seen these types of images suggest that what people are seeing is just space debris, and sometimes they can take on different forms that make them look like UFOs. Further saying that there's thousands of pieces of space debris above our planet, and it's likely that that's what people are seeing. Those who have watched the live cams and have studied these images though have said this isn't what people are seeing, pointing out that when these objects come within the live cam's view, NASA shuts off the feed. They asked that if these were just space debris, then why do the cameras always shut off when they come into view? This has happened on a number of occasions, with UFO researchers saying that it proves that something is going on that NASA doesn't want us to know about. In the past, news stations have tried to reach out to NASA to get an answer for what they think these objects are, but 99% of the time they fail to give an answer. Skeptics have also said that people don't understand that a lot of events happen above our planet, with one of the most common ones being that of meteorites entering our atmosphere. They've said that people who aren't used to this sight will confuse this with things like UFOs, when in reality what they're witnessing is something that happens all the time. Well, one believer said the following: "This is one of the problems we're facing when it comes to things like UFOs being seen close to the International Space Station. People are so quick to deny it. I think at this point we all need to understand that it's obvious that something is going on. I'm not saying that every one of these things is an unidentified flying object, but to say that every single one can be explained away as space debris is just ignorant. It's clear that government officials are interested in the UFO phenomena, as declassified documents show us that they've been researching these things for several decades, and when they close down one of these projects that's been assigned to UFOs, they usually open up another one soon after. It's clear that there's something we're not being told about when it comes to the subject of UFOs. The more we deny it, the more we dig ourselves a hole, and the harder it will be to open our minds to things we don't understand. For the past 5 years, government officials have been dropping hints that they know about these crafts. I hope that there will be an announcement soon, and that we can all start moving forward. End quote. Right now there's still people that believe these objects are not natural, and that some photographs show what looks like crafts under intelligent control. In some cases, people have reported that these objects will suddenly cover a vast distance in a matter of seconds, or that they've witnessed these crafts making a 360-degree turn and then shoot away. They say that we don't have the technology to be able to do this, and it's one of the reasons why they think something is going on. Although it's easy to dismiss some of these claims, it's important to have an open mind about these objects, and the subject in general. When it comes to the universe,
To make FanDuel Sportsbook's risk-free first bet even less risky.
Sorry, guys. Commercials. Alright, now I gotta manually turn it up again. Damn you, commercials. Messing up my podcast.
Small and inconsequential. There's quadrillions of planets scattered all throughout the universe, and all you need is one of them to be 100,000 years ahead of us, and potentially you'd have a civilization 100,000 years more advanced. Think how much we've achieved in the last 100 years alone. So is it really out there to think that an advanced civilization could exist somewhere in the universe? So what do you make of these interesting objects that have been seen close to the International Space Station? Do you believe they're just space debris that's giving off the illusion that something is there? Or do you think they're UFOs? Also, why do you think NASA shuts down the live feed when one of these objects appear? I'm interested to hear your theories, so be sure to leave your questions and answers in the comments section below.
Oh, the chat over here in our chat room. I don't know about you, but I believe in UFOs even before I even saw one, or two, or three, or four, or five. I grew up believing in them because my daddy told me so, and, I trusted and believed my dad. He was a very smart man. Should have been on Jeopardy. That was one of his favorite shows, but these craft are out here. Why are they denying it? I know, there was an agreement signed, pretty sure that expired unless they signed another one, but just let us know. And I do understand, the whole thing about chickens running around with, they have their heads cut off or whatnot. As we can see, when COVID came out, all the food and water was gone, and the toilet paper. Pretty sure people were building toilet paper forts. But there's been so many different astronauts out there in space that have seen these things as well, and have talked about them, most generally after they've retired. But yeah, just tell us, just let us know. Oh, Brave Sir Robin said he saw a UFO a couple blocks away, wondering when that was. Man, I've seen at least 10 by now. Saw one on New Year's Eve. My daughter saw it too, and her guy friend that was visiting for Christmas, because nobody should be alone on Christmas, even this guy. But yeah, we all went out for a smoke and saw it. Shortly before that, out in the yard with Lily before it got too cold, out there playing, and she's like, "Look, Mama, it's a UFO." And my 16-year-old at the same time was in this neighborhood with her friends, and they saw it. To me, it just appeared to be one bright, brilliant white light, sparkling, twinkling, moving about back and forth, because I lost my glasses quite a while ago. And I can't see at a distance very well, but Lily said she saw a few, and Nova, who was right underneath them at the same time, said that they saw 3 in a triangle formation shooting back and forth between positions. And then all of a sudden they stopped and then shot off at a rate that was too quick to see. Okay, so Brave Sir Robin said, "This is when I was in junior high. I just came out with a friend." Oh, came outside, yes. And it's always awesome when you have somebody there to see it with you, because how do you prove it? I didn't have my phone on me that day, of course. I try to now, every time I go outside, have my phone on me, because there's something, whether it's nature, You know, the same week that my cat disappeared, a bald eagle flew over our field next door, wondering if they met and became short friends, had dinner together. But yeah, there's so many things to see and take pictures of when you're out there. If you see a UFO, if you're able to contain your excitement and push the buttons correctly and get to that point, it's much easier now than the first time I saw a UFO, or a second time actually I saw a UFO. But yeah, it's hard to get that evidence. And phones are getting better and better. Some out there are 4K in our movie quality. I have this weird frog, and I thought it was in my throat, but I think it's in my lungs. Weird. But they are out there, and a lot of us know it. It's just a matter of telling us. And somebody was talking about a great big disclosure going on where they're going to disclose all kinds of video pics and basically, generally, it's paperwork, which has been gone through with a broad permanent marker, and all the important stuff is blacked out, and you can only see a few words here and there, and it's hard to draw any conclusions from that. Like, why share the information if you're not going to share the actual freaking information? Give me a freaking break. It's insane. Insanity. Okay, so the other two that I had sent myself is about COVID. And man, I know especially after this whole election shenanigan stuff and all the chaos that came from that, all of us are kind of needing a break from all this crap. One is talking about the case of the fast-moving new COVID strain, which is basically a mutation, was found here in Colorado. And this was by a CBS News. And I was just kind of amazed and perplexed. Like, we're not in the middle of the United States, but we're kind of tucked in there, away from the coast, where I know there's tons of people that fly here from different countries, but generally you think of New York or California or something along those lines. And it's just baffling to me. How are these things getting here? When are they going to shut down the airlines? Because they're not even doing it right. The first plane I was on, I was like, okay, I can deal with this. There's actually spacing. Even though on a plane, it doesn't really matter. Because you're breathing in recycled air anyways, right? There's a video here. I'm not sure if it covers this whole article. I believe it does. So this is just talking about a fast-spreading COVID-19 variant here in my state. And this again is by CBS News.
This is BetMGM, where every snap is showtime.
And this is a cotton picking commercial.
Right now, when you join BetMGM and bet $1, you win 100 if there's a touchdown this week.
I'm gonna kind of hold my finger over it and try to move it away from the microphone until it's done with its advertisement. I guess I could let it play, but I hate commercials. Where is the skip button? Sometimes you can't skip. You can't skip. I mean, as if this wasn't scary in the first place. Here we go with a new strain. Okay, so Brave Sir Robin said it was nighttime, just came out of a play a couple blocks down. We saw this bright disc object in the sky that wasn't moving, then it moved a little, then it went.
A new strain of the coronavirus, first discovered in Britain and thought to be more contagious, has been found in the U.S. for the first time. Officials say the patient is a man in his 20s who lives in rural Colorado and has no recent travel history. It's one more problem in the middle of a massive end-of-the-year surge. More than 201,000 new COVID cases were reported yesterday. Wow. Along with a record one-day total of 3,725 deaths. Meg Oliver's in New York City, one of the hardest hit areas. Meg, good morning.
Adriana, good morning. Here in the one-time epicenter of the outbreak, hospitalizations have more than doubled since the beginning of the month, levels not seen since May. And things are looking increasingly grim nationwide as Dr. Anthony Fauci warns the pandemic is out of control.
We're going to have an increase superimposed upon that surge, which could make January even worse than December.
A worse month of coronavirus is hard to imagine, especially in places like Los Angeles County. Daily deaths there are up 600% since November. And with ICUs completely full, the state extended strict stay-at-home orders on the Southern California region. Some hospitals are treating patients in ambulances and cafeterias. At Martin Luther King Jr. Community Hospital, they've resorted to putting beds in the gift shop.
We're a 131-bed hospital that started the day with 224 patients in the hospital.
With the virus raging out of control, many Americans are desperate to get the vaccine, and the process so far has been slow.
There is absolutely no reason we cannot get vaccines out faster to the American people.
Dr. Ashish Jha is the dean of Brown University School of Public Health.
There really hasn't been much investment from the federal side in helping states to get the vaccines into people's arms. States don't have the dollars and they don't have the resources to just figure all of this stuff out on their own.
In Florida, thousands of seniors lined up for their shot at the COVID vaccine, some waiting overnight.
It's kind of like a mob scene of senior citizens.
Retired school teacher Wayne Frangello spent hours waiting for information from local officials about vaccine registration that he says never came. He finally booked a slot 2 weeks from now.
It wasn't on Twitter. It wasn't on Facebook. It wasn't on the news. If you're not good at sniffing and scurrying, you're just out of luck.
Dr. Jha told us at the current vaccination rate, it would take years for us to reach herd immunity. But both he and Dr. Fauci believe the process will eventually speed up. Yesterday, Health and Human Services announced nearly 20 million doses for distribution, but most of those have yet to be distributed and very few have actually been administered. Jerika?
Meg, thank you.
And that's ridiculous. And that kind of takes me back to what I was saying before, as far as there is no Federal Reserve of vaccinations. We were lied to once again. Surprise, boys and girls. So you may have your first vaccination as a senior. You may still be waiting for it and watching people, like I heard this couple talking about it. They live right by where they're dispensing these vaccinations. There's people from Canada all over the place. Of course, Florida is like a snowbird state. So a lot of people in snowy states during the winter, especially seniors, will go down to California or Florida, Arizona, wherever it's warmer, and spend their winters there. And people are getting frustrated. Why are these people that are out of state coming and getting their vaccinations when I can't even get mine? But it's because they have dual citizenship, or they have a house here and a house there, or a timeshare, or whatever it may be. So they're able to do that. I don't know. It's pretty perplexing the way that is working. Let's see. What was the other one I had? Okay, so this was like January 1st, so I'm not even gonna play that one because it's so outdated by now, with all the stuff going on in the world. But it's just been insane. So many different things. Just like when New Mexico, actually in Farmington and that area, got real hot, they closed down everything, including the grocery stores. How can you do that? These are essential. How can you close down a store if it's because you're afraid of it spreading? Well, you're making it worse for us here in Colorado, because people are coming from New Mexico here to Durango or Cortez and getting their groceries there. If there is, a spread going on, which, we know there is, then it's going to spread here too. So, I don't know. Pretty insane. I'm wondering where this person from Colorado that got this strain, what rural area they're from, where they at? Do they work somewhere? Did they get it by going to get their groceries, or just, randomly walking past someone. It's hard to say. Pretty weird, crazy stuff. But yeah, as far as the UFOs go, even Larry King Live was a big person about UFOs and trying to get the word out there for that. He was such an awesome, epic, open individual. He would talk about anything to anyone. Let me see if I can find one of Larry King on UFOs. Now they're UAPs. Unidentified aerial phenomenon. Oh my. Yeah, and that's a 2-hour, it's UFO cover-up live with Larry King. This was in 1994, and they had Glenn Campbell, Robert Dean, Mark Farmer, and Stanton Friedman on for a 2-hour Larry King Live special. Are UFOs real? This was another episode. Let's see who was in that one. Directed by Chip Herzl, with Larry King and Buzz Aldrin. And he had a lot to say about UFOs too. And when you hear it from people like astronauts, scientists, so on and so forth, it's really hard to deny that. Don't deny it. You know it's true. You know it's true. Ooh. Best Larry King Live UFO debate ever, July 8th, part 1. Is this another video? I'm looking for articles. So this was 5 years ago.
Have UFOs shut down our government's defense systems? There is evidence that something caused missiles to malfunction during test launches. Former Air Force officers tell their incredible stories about the film that was confiscated by the CIA. What was on it? And why don't officials want us to see it? Find out right now on Larry King Live. Shocking allegations that UFOs have interfered with missiles at U.S. Air Force bases and aliens are monitoring nuclear warheads and bombs. Our first guests claim UFOs have activated missile systems at 5 Air Force bases in 5 different states. They also claim a cover-up, that the United States government is keeping the information secret. Former Air Force officers and an investigator are here with their stories. Here in Los Angeles is Robert Hastings. He's author of UFOs and Nukes. I have the book right here. The book is available at ufohastings.com. He has been investigating sightings at weapon sites for years. Bob Salas is a former captain, U.S. Air Force Base. At the U.S. Air Force, he was at Malmstrom Air Force Base in 1967, where there were claims a UFO caused missiles to malfunction. He's co-author of Fated Giant. Bob Jameson is with us, former U.S. Air Force officer. He was at Malmstrom as well in 1967, and he says his superiors told him UFOs caused the malfunctions. And in Peoria, Illinois, is Dr. Bob Jacobs, former First Lieutenant U.S. Air Force, former U.S. Air Force photographic instrumentation officer. A UFO showed up on film that he shot in 1964 at Vandenberg Air Force Base, and that was later confiscated by CIA agents. All of our guests are named Bob, so I'm going to call them by their last names. We'll start with Robert Hastings. How did you get, what's your explanation for UFOs at nuclear weapon sites?
I can simply say after 35 years of research that these incidents have taken place. There are hundreds of declassified documents which indicate that UFOs have demonstrated a distinct and ongoing interest in our nuclear weapons sites. I've also interviewed nearly 100 gentlemen who were involved in these incidents at various Air Force bases. This is very widespread. What you're seeing here this evening is the tip of the iceberg.
How do they cause a malfunction? What do they do to cause something to not work?
I think that's probably still an unknown. I know that Boeing engineers attempted to duplicate some of the malfunctions. They did succeed in doing that, but they still can't determine what initially caused them. Bob Salas could address that.
Bob, what happened at Maelstrom in 1967?
1967, I was on duty as a missile launch officer. I get calls from my guards upstairs. First, I get one call saying that they're seeing strange lights flying in the sky, and I didn't pay too much attention to that. About 5 minutes later, the main security guard, the flight security controller, calls down, says he's looking at a glowing red object, very large, hovering over the front gate. He wants to know what to do. I tell him to secure the facility. We hang up. I go to tell my commanders. So within seconds of that call, my missiles start shutting down. I recall losing all 10 of them.
You didn't see the object?
I didn't see the object because I was obliged to stay underground in the capsule.
By shutting down, we mean what?
By shutting down, what I mean is they were not launchable. They were in a no-go condition, disabled.
How long to restart them?
How long to restart? Well, I'm sure it took over a day, and maybe...
All right. Bob Jameson, you were there too, right?
Yes, sir.
And you were in the Air Force?
Yes, I was in the Air Force.
Where were you when this was happening?
Yeah, I was a targeting officer, missile targeting officer. I was at home relaxing, and I got a call from Job Control to tell them to come in. A missile had gone down. My job as a targeting officer was to bring him back up. And so I went in.
So you didn't see the incident. You just went to the missile.
I went to the incident. I went to the site.
Where is Maelstrom?
It's Great Falls, Montana. Just outside of Great Falls, Montana.
What did you make of the story?
Well, I know that it's true. I went into Job Control after I got to the hangar. I was called in, went to the hangar, went to the Job Control, and I noticed they have a map of the whole complex with green lights where the missiles were good, but there's one small area with 10 red lights. I mean, those missiles were out.
Is it possible they just malfunctioned?
That doesn't happen. Very rarely does a missile malfunction, and I don't think much more rare would be 2 at the same time, but never 10.
Now, Bob Jacobs, where were you? What were you filming, and where were you?
I was officer in charge of optical instrumentation at Vandenberg Air Force Base from 1963 to 66.
That's
Our
California?
job was to photograph. That's California, so right there on the coast. Right. And our job was to photograph with high-speed instrumentation every missile launch from Vandenberg going down the test range. They wanted to find out if we could figure out a place to put a telescope where we could get a side view of the missile so that we could see all 3 stages of powered flight. So I went up to Big Sur, California, up on a U.S. Forest Service road on Anderson Peak. I installed a telescopic sight up there. The Air Force flew in a huge catadioptric telescope from the Cape. It was built by Dr. Walter Manning at Boston University. They put the telescope up there, and with that thing, which had a focal length of 2,500 inches, we photographed an Atlas missile raising up out of the fog cover and flying down range. We got all 3 stages of powered flight, and as the dummy warhead and the package flew on down range, we were all celebrating the fact that we had seen the thing and accomplished the mission. When I got back to the base with the film the next day, I was called into the office of Major Florence J. Mansman, and there were 3 people in gray suits standing in there. There was a 16-millimeter camera and a screen set up. Major Mansman said, "Lieutenant, sit down and watch this." And he turned down the lights, turned on the camera, on the projector, and the film came on. And I recognized it as the film that we'd shot at Big Sur the previous day. Toward the end of the flight, I was looking at Major Mansman saying, "Pretty good stuff, huh, sir?" And suddenly he said, "Just watch this." And as I watched, the warhead, the dummy warhead, the chaff that was put out in front of it as a decoy to deflect the Russian anti-missile tracking radar, everything was flying along, and suddenly, in the same direction this stuff was flying at about 8,000 miles an hour, an object came into the frame, shot a beam of light at the warhead, flew up to the top, shot another beam of light at the warhead, flew around the direction it was flying, shot another beam of light at the warhead, flew down, shot another beam of light at the warhead, and flew out the same way it came in.
Well, I don't see it. Why didn't you see this when you were shooting it?
Well, it was 600 to 800 miles away from us.
Oh, I got you. They confiscated.
Well, first of all, the Major Mansman said to me, "What was that? Were you guys screwing around up there?" I said, "No, sir." And he said, "Then tell me what that was." And I said, "We got a UFO." And he said, "Lieutenant, you are never to speak of this again. As far as you're concerned, this didn't happen."
Hold on, guys. I'll be right back. I got to take a break. Okay, that's weird. You think there's a national defense plan for aliens? Sounds crazy. We'll ask about that next.
I'm not alone in witnessing something extraordinary. That's the bottom line.
Powerful beaming spotlights.
Angular and shape, like sitting on three legs.
Type of aircraft I've ever seen
Rapidly maneuver and quickly disappear.
accelerating to very high speed. Majestic triangle craft.
What we were seeing didn't resemble anything known to us.
Bob Jameson will make this clear. You were asked to say nothing?
I was not asked to say nothing. In fact, no one admonished me, and I did not sign an oath saying that
So
I can't say.
there was no cover-up as far as you were concerned?
That's correct.
You just...
I can tell. I can speak
saw
about
what
it.
you saw. Do you think there's a plan for invasion by aliens?
I wouldn't presume to know that. I just simply know that the U.S. government does not obviously appreciate people such as myself and these gentlemen speaking out about this, what we're describing on an ongoing basis, decade after decade, at multiple Air Force bases, is just disruption of our nuclear missiles.
We have an email from Kyle in Plainville, Massachusetts. Why would UFOs only disable U.S. defense systems and not another country? Is there a lesson to be learned in all this? Or do you think maybe... Bob Salas, they have disabled other countries.
They have. I know that there have been events in the Soviet Union where they have interfered there. They've been seen in just any country you can name. And they do disable communications, especially.
We have an email from Eric in Atlanta, Georgia. What can be done, if anything, to force the U.S. government and/or military to...
Oh no, not a commercial. Oh yeah, there's an ad. There's an ad, everybody. And it's taking a little bit to load. Oh my. Wayfair. Wayfair, you got just what I need. Shop now. Oh wow. And I don't understand any of what this nice lady's saying. It's got Shakira, and somebody else. Oh, booty shake. Shake the booty. Shakira. Something in Spanish something. Man. Looks like she's dancing with some handsome fella. Got 20 more seconds of this shenanigans. My apologies again. Brave Sir Robin, Skywatcher, Sleepy Dave, and whoever may be out there beyond the omniverse listening. Shakira's got her cute little panda bear buns going on. I'm not talking about her booty, talking about her did. Alright. Oh no. Play. Yes. Oh, unique vintage. The Valentine's Day collection. Cue the cheesy pickup lines at www.unique-vintage.com. Oh my goodness, how long is this commercial break?
You idiots! Update on man killed by tigers after scaling zoo wall.
Tigers are born killers, and when you accidentally find yourself on their turf, they'll be sure to let you know. A man in Ningbo, China, found this out the hard way after he scaled a wall to get into the zoo for free, but paid the price with his life. On January 28th, the man surnamed Zhang and his co-worker surnamed Li decided to take their families for a nice outing at the Yonggor Zoo. While their wives walked in with Zhang's 2 children, the men decided to hop the fence, trying to save less than $20 US each on park admission. Scaling the zoo's 10-foot-tall outer wall, past warnings and wire netting, they met with another 10-foot wall. While Li stayed back, Zhang forged ahead. Unfortunately, when he dropped down, he didn't realize he'd just entered tiger territory.
Ruh-roh.
Trapped like a rat and surrounded by 4 big cats. Li walked into a painful hour of punishment for his grave mistake.
Oh, shit.
Other park visitors could only watch in horror as the 4 tigers' curiosity led them to feast on Zhang's body. Zoo officials used firecrackers and water cannons to scare away 3 of the tigers, but one of them was undeterred by the threats, more fascinated with its new plaything. Rather than back off, the tiger batted Zhang around like a ball of yarn, and then stripped off his clothes, leaving his flesh exposed.
Nasty.
As the tiger dragged his body into the forested area of the enclosure, Chinese special forces finally gunned it down with a bullet. Meanwhile, Zhang was rushed to hospital, but soon died of his devastating injuries. In the aftermath of the incident, the public is mourning, not for the death of the foolish father of 2, but for the dead tiger. A representative of animal rights group PETA has stated, attacks by captive big cats on people, which occur with staggering regularity, illustrate the profound level of stress, anxiety, and agitation these animals experience every day of their lives.
I just gotta say, the video they're showing on this, I can't believe they're showing it. Like, it's showing the tiger having this poor guy by the neck and just yanking him around, and his lifeless body just being jerked around. Like, this is insane. I can't believe they're showing this. And I think it's called Tomo News, but I'll double check that for you guys.
The tiger's death is garnering the sympathy of Chinese netizens, much like Harambe the gorilla last year in the US. One Weibo user wrote, "This visitor's death by mauling really does not deserve any sympathy. Tigers are the carnivorous kings of the jungle, and hunting for food is their instinct. Who can you blame if you jump in and get attacked? Rest in peace, tiger."
Tomo News. Tomo News. That was insane. Holy crap. I do feel bad for that guy. Like, I hope saving $20 was worth it. Holy crap. Ugh. Hopefully we'll get back to Larry King Live here. Yeah, that was just crazy. Holy crap. Ooh. I'm traumatized. Holy shnikes. Trying to... Okay, dailymotion.com. Okay, I don't want to watch that. Where's my Larking Live? Where'd it go? No. What the crack? So did they get in here and interrupt our broadcast of Larry King Live and these other fellas? Like, this should be... No, I don't want to play that. Go back. Hopefully I can get us... Nope, go back. What the crack? It was supposed to be a commercial, and then all of a sudden it plays something else. Anyways, while we're waiting on that, we're going to go to our first commercial break, which is music, luckily. Oh my goodness. The poor guy. And that tiger. Poor guy and tiger, yeah. Alrighty. So we have Miss Tamara Bubble and she's from the greater New York area. During this break, she'll be singing Cute Panties, Laundry, as well as, she's got one more here, let me scroll down, Out the Mud. Then we have Mr. Roy Washington, who is from Milwaukee, and he is our musical host. He provides all of our music for our music breaks, and he'll be singing Subliminal. And then we also have Britt Casey, who is from Boston, Massachusetts, Boston, with Mr. Cellman, kind of a upgrade from our older classic Mr. Telephone Man. Mr. Phone Man. All right, so we'll see you back here in just a minute.
Yeah. Bubble on that. Yeah. Real cute. On the way. To be honest, I don't really wear many. I don't even really rock panties. Let me be clear, I'm used to getting a few new big pair each year from my granny. Couple sexy ones that might come off, and I done had way too much. Any a drunk text go out. They come and eat the sweet juicy pie down there. I'ma go that route. But now, nigga, wrong song. I only need a couple of bars to turn you on. That's why I started mentioning that lingerie, but pull her to the studio with some long john. This verse about to take a turn for the worse, and all them cute panties gonna be long gone. Cause the hating niggas that I wrote it for, they ain't afraid of wordplay, that's why they wrote this for. So I'ma drive them wild. Thinking one day they might hit all about my voice shows G-string, slutty thongs, even put them edible panties on the cover so they wonder how that bubble tastes. You can stay mad, be miserable, old, predictable, maybe not even applicable. But yeah, you typical. Check your mans if it ain't you, cause way too many queens rocking shades cause they eyes black and blue. Way too many dudes putting hands on the broad. That make you feel like a man. Mishandling a weaker vessel, yeah, you saw. Yo, look, it's way too many dudes only wanna spar. But ain't got no conversation, only wanna gossip when we talk. Why kicks in these grown dudes, I got the broad dating like some broad. Why kicks in these dudes, like these girls fighting on the stopper to record. These little niggas online, the worst part, lame hoes got a squad. And all they do is this like the females doing interviews with that nigga blog. I be like, come in, big boy, take off them drawers. I just came from shopping, let me slip you into something real soft. You prefer the lace, the satin, or the silk, cause some pretty little rolls, they gon' hang off your balls. Look at you, sitting pretty, yeah. You the type that rock them cute panties, yeah. Come here, you cute, yeah. Real cute, you hating on a female, cute, real cute. Why you mad we getting money? Maybe that's why you sag like them panties shout. Oh, by the way, cute panties, bro, real cute. Grown man, big boss, taking shots from a penthouse love. Talking trash, he making big calls. Yep, then again, that's only till his phone got off. Come again, yes, phone got disconnected. But don't worry, he be back online hating in a second. Back at the crib, remember she paid her phone and the rent. Squashing nigga vegetable soft. Now he souped up in my mentions on some vegetable bro. Leaving comment at the comment, you that thirsty, drink vomit. I promise I ain't never seen nobody when had so much time to hate me. Be honest, is you mad at me? Or the fact that I'm grinding? It's a fact that I'm winning, son, I really be shining. Why you pressed on my diamond? You ready to swing on this little bitty girl, so don't tell me I'm lying. Way too many dudes putting hands on the broad. That make you feel like a man. Mishandling a weaker vessel, yeah, you saw. Yo, look, it's way too many dudes only wanna spar. But ain't got no conversation, only wanna gossip when we talk. Why kicks in these grown dudes, I got the broad dating like some broad. Why kicks in these dudes, like these girls fighting on the stopper to record. These little niggas online, the worst part, lame hoes got a squad. And all they do is this like the females doing interviews with that nigga blog. I be like, come in, big boy, take off them drawers. I just came from shopping, let me slip you into something real soft. You prefer the lace, the satin, or the silk, cause some pretty little rolls, they gon' hang off your balls. Look at you, sitting pretty, yeah. You the type that rock them cute panties, yeah. Come here, you cute, yeah. Real cute, you hating on a female, cute, real cute. Why you mad we getting money? Maybe that's why you sag like them panties shout. Oh, by the way, cute panties, bro, real cute.
Yeah. Come on.
I see you, Roy Washington, man. What's happening, man?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. They never say it in words, but in deeds wars declared. Justice is gone and the sight's none is spare. Especially the kingdom encased in melanin. But these suckers are weak, kings and queens will ride again. Come on. Slackers with badges, the white sheets and the maggots. Watch them fall as I tag them because I'm better than average. A sharpshooter with words with my eye to the scope. Can they escape when I've donned the black cape? Is hell no. I'm a ninja for right, who can vanish from sight. Pick you off in the night, but still the Lord is my light. Perceiving all you see, the truth behind the scenes. Instead of jumping bandwagons, the light says believe in me. Cause you're a puppet, no doubt. 45th turned you out. Though I saw your lips moving, no sound came out. So I was sent from the heavenlies, born so you could find me. Swam the scene and stream, took flight during the 90s. Landed in grace, wrote a verse of hip-hop. Got with Jay and found the taste was smooth as butterscotch. We had hood love and money. Problems, they be on me, but we stayed in the flow. It had juice like Manolo.
They can try to oppress, you can try to impress. I'm just after success, none less. You can look in my eyes, you can feel it, my vibes. Clean down inside and it's so subliminal. God on my side, I ain't worried about none. If it ain't about money, then it ain't about none. Laughing at my enemies, I know they see me coming. If it ain't subliminal, they can't even see me.
Politics and violent shit, I'm here to raise the consciousness. For every face and race up in this nation trapped in poverty. Diamond in the rough, need to cut, shape it and polish it. Bad thoughts cripple life, we can be an optimist. We can be an optimist, reconstruct apocalypse. Broke people always hating, mix me with that gossiping. Rose up in the concrete, rain and sun, I'm blossoming. My people need to be like kind of Velcro, then we conquering.
They can try to oppress, you can try to impress. I'm just after success, none less. You can look in my eyes, you can feel it, my vibes. Clean down inside and it's so subliminal. God on my side, I ain't worried about none. If it ain't about money, then it ain't about none. Laughing at my enemies, I know they see me coming. If it ain't subliminal, they can't even see me coming.
The 45th is a joke, and he's weak in disgust. He plans to divide, but there's no stopping us. If we have to fight, go toe-to-toe for our lives, we prevail and got sight, cause only light I recite. I blow my lyrics like a shotgun, camouflaged inside the tracks. Now watch the suckers run. Now moving fast enough, heads up, now here I come. I designed 50 ways to make this murder fun. I spit the lyrical rain that coat the concrete, that give life and take form. Arise and walk the street. Am I the greatest to spit? Feel the spray and we'll see. Let it dry, all the lies and the truth will point to me. Even when surrounded by a million MCs, I'm the one under the sun who's the greatest of these. I got the Holy Ghost juking and tapping while I'm rapping. Sticking and moving like Roy Jones, I'll make it happen. Even animals move when the novelist is rocking. My doggy started barking, his ears just a-flopping. Subliminally, I penetrate camps like an enemy. Flicking the lights, cancel sight, cause you're not seeing me.
They can try to oppress, you can try to impress. I'm just after success, none less. You can look in my eyes, you can feel it, my vibes. Live a king down inside. And it's so subliminal. God on my side, I ain't worried about none. If it ain't about money, then it ain't about none. Laughing at my enemies, I know they see me coming. If it ain't subliminal, they can't even see me coming.
Hey, get up on that washer, hit the spin cycle till I come home. The way where I'm at, I'm out here breadwinning, so don't hit my phone. Shoulda never gave you treats like that. You got a sweet tooth and won't leave me alone. And every time I try to get some sleep, I wake up cause you doing me wrong. Sneaking up under covers, you somebody, but I love it. Hate it that you got me weak, cause now we ruin all these sheets. Like who doing laundry? Who doing laundry? Who? You doing laundry? Who doing laundry? You doing laundry? Who? You doing laundry? Ain't playing, think I'm playing. I'ma have you doing them dishes too. Better let them plates clean, be grateful for this delicious food. Why you want on fours? What you scrubbing floors cause you want some more? But you like it dirty, you is so dirty, you like it dirty. Sneaking up under covers, you somebody, but I love it. Hate it that you got me weak, cause now we ruin all these sheets. Like who doing laundry? Who doing laundry? Who? You doing laundry? Who doing laundry? You doing laundry? Who? You doing laundry? Sneaking up under covers, you somebody, but I love it. Hate it that you got me weak, cause now we ruin all these sheets. Like who doing laundry? You doing laundry? Who? You doing laundry? Who doing laundry? You more, why you creeping? Third of all up on me, rubbing like conditioner that you be trying to leave it. Relax, love, keep breathing. And I would say keep cleaning, but you like it dirty. You is so dirty, you like it dirty, yeah. Sneaking up under covers. Used to fight it, but I love it. Hate it that you got me weak, cause now we ruin all these sheets. Like, who doing laundry? Ooh, you doing laundry? Ooh, you doing laundry? Who doing laundry? Ooh, you doing laundry? Ooh, you doing laundry? Get up on that washer, hit the spin cycle till I come home. The way where I'm at, I'm out here bread winning, so don't hit my phone. Shoulda never gave you treats like that. You got a sweet tooth and won't leave me alone. And every time I try to get some sleep, I wake up cause you doing me wrong. Sneaking up under covers. Used to fight it, but I love it. Hate it that you got me weak, cause now we ruin all these sheets. Like, who doing laundry? Ooh, you doing laundry? Ooh, you doing laundry? Who doing laundry? Ooh, you doing laundry? Ooh, you doing laundry? Sneaking up under covers. Used to fight it, but I love it. Hate it that you got me weak, cause now we ruin all these sheets. Like, who doing laundry? Ooh, you doing laundry? Ooh, you doing laundry? Who doing laundry? Ooh, you doing laundry? Ooh, you doing laundry? Sneaking up under covers. Yeah, you like it dirty. You are so dirty. You like it dirty, yeah? Under covers. Yeah, you like it dirty. You are so dirty. You like it dirty, yeah?
Hello? I'm trying to call my baby, but it's poor reception, cause she ain't picking up. Hello? Hello? Listen, Mr. Operator, I've been up all day and I'm trying to dial my baby's number. See, it only rings straight to the machine. 617. Now I know something must be wrong with this cell phone, cause my baby knows she wouldn't hang up on me. So tell me what's going on. Now see, most of the time phone only ring twice. How you doing, boo? Cool, how's your date? Nice. Now she ain't picking up, plus a text her. Put it to your plane, she's the one to get next to. It's not just the way, it's all day with affection. I'm hoping this detection is poor reception. Straight to the machine, mean it's like clicking my car, get connected quick. I'm saying, hey, Mr. Cellular Phone Man, I see there's something wrong with my line. I try to dial my baby's number, but get click every time. Mr. Cellular Phone Man, I see there's something wrong with my line. I try to dial my baby's number, but get click every time. Why she ain't picking up, yo? I see the phone rings quite a few times before any answer. And I know she's home, well at least till 3. And I know she's home. Now I don't mean to be any bother operator, but could you just check and connect this call for me? Cause I know she's home. Now see, the first time I call, I'm like, maybe she working. And the second time I call, I'm like, little bit hurting. But the third time I call, I'm like, going berserk. And now half a day gone, can't get her on the horn. Usually in the morning, maybe it's something wrong. I mean, she wouldn't take this long to call back. See, we tight like that, she's supposed to be mine. So could you please try it one more time? Hey, Mr. Cellular Phone Man, I see there's something wrong with my line. I try to dial my baby's number, but get click every time. Mr. Cellular Phone Man, I see there's something wrong with my line. I try to dial my baby's number, but get click every time. Why she ain't picking up, yo? For some reason, it's like she ain't home. Just wanna get my baby on the phone. Now I know that she's there all alone. So can you please hook up my cellular phone? Hey, Mr. Cellular Phone Man, I see there's something wrong with my line. I try to dial my baby's number, but get click every time. Mr. Cellular Phone Man, I see something wrong with my line. I try to dial my baby's number, but get click every time. Mr. Cellular Phone Man, I see there's something wrong with my line. I try to dial my baby's number, but get click every time. Mr.
Welcome back, and thanks so much for joining us tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. I know I posted this as we're going to read from this amazing book. I actually bought this shortly after I did my very first investigation of the Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad, and it's called Ghost Tracks, Haunting Tales Along the Rails, and it's written by Elizabeth A. Green and Suzy Garrison Meyers. But, you know, Larry King Live, man, he's been with us like all our lives, basically. For me, he's been around, whether he's doing radio or Larry King Live, but he did pass away yesterday, so January 23rd, 2021. So rest in peace, Larry King. I've been playing some interviews that he has done. I also read an article about him, being he was so epic and just a major pillar in my life, personally, growing up. He just had this really great energy, and I don't know. I'm trying to remember the story, and I heard or read this story a long time ago about the suspenders. I think his wife, jokingly, one of his wives, handed him a pair of suspenders and, here, why don't you use these? And he didn't really need them, but I guess he kind of liked the way they looked. It was one of his things that he did. This next one that I found that I wanted to play is Larry King Live, and it's he's interviewing UFO experts James Fox, Tom DeLonge, and where did it go? My internet is crazy. And Michael Shermer, and they tell Larry King Live about curiosity, evidence, and extraterrestrials. And this originally was from Larry King Now on Aura TV, and today is being provided to us by dailymotion.com. So the rights belong to these people, just in case YouTube was wondering. I do not own the rights to these, but the description here says ufologist James Fox, Blink-182 frontman Tom DeLonge, and publisher of Skeptic magazine, Michael Shermer, joined Larry King for a colorful discussion about UFOs, alien abductions, and whether the government is withholding information, plus new details on Roswell.
Today on Larry King Now, the truth about UFOs. UFOologist James Fox, musician turned believer Tom DeLonge, and skeptic Michael Shermer on what's really out there.
People knew that Pluto was there long before that we actually saw it. They thought black holes were there long before we actually found one. But we know there's life in the universe because we're here.
Is the government hiding something?
Something that can whiz around with impunity and fly rings around your fastest jets. You don't necessarily want to disclose that nature of information.
Or are believers just being duped?
The next time an abductee goes up to the mothership, grab one of the little widgets off the dashboard and bring it back so we can look at it.
Plus, your UFO questions answered, all ahead on Larry King Now.
Go Larry, go Larry.
Hi, musician Tom DeLonge is one of the lead vocalists of the punk rock band Blink-182, and last year he launched Strange Times, a website that highlights UFO and other paranormal activity. Michael Shermer is the publisher of Skeptic magazine, executive director of the Skeptic Society, and a college professor as well. And if you haven't guessed, he is our resident skeptic. And I might be half a skeptic, too, because I've been talking about this topic for 50 years. James Fox is a filmmaker and the host of Chasing UFOs on National Geographic. His most recent UFO documentary is called I Know What I Saw. 65 years after it happened, Roswell, New Mexico is back in the news. An ex-Air Force official recently came forward saying there were 2 crashes and not one. What does this mean, Mike? James, what does it mean?
Well, it's a story that wouldn't go away just because I think there's so much evidence, and it's not any one particular witness or piece of evidence, but there are so many people from so many different walks of life, so many different ranks in the military who keep coming forward and saying whatever it was that crashed was not of this earth.
Now, this is Colonel French, who used to debunk this, right?
He did. He debunked this stuff for the Air Force as part of Project Blue Book.
So why has he suddenly come around?
Maybe his conscience got the better of him. And it's interesting, actually, because people must keep in mind that the 509th was based in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947. It's the most elite bomb squadron in the world. So for those guys, exclusively responsible for the deployment of atomic weapons, to mistake a common everyday weather balloon or Project Mogul, I just don't think it's possible.
Since then, we've had presidents, Truman, Eisenhower, Johnson, Kennedy, Clinton, Nixon. None of these presidents has ever decided to reveal it.
But you're also talking about the Cold War, too.
Clinton made discreet inquiries. Ford made discreet inquiries. Carter made discreet inquiries.
Carter said he saw one. He told me one.
Well, he saw the planet Venus.
He saw something.
Yeah. Well, that's what we think he saw. And also, Clinton did an investigation into Roswell, found nothing. So
he wasn't
not only would they not hide it, I'm with you, Larry. Not only would they not hide it,
he wasn't happy with the answers he was getting.
How do you know?
Michael, what do you think?
Okay,
You're the skeptic.
Yeah,
what do you think it all
First
is?
of all, of course the government would tell us. They'd go straight to Congress and say, we need more funding.
Right.
NASA would not hide this. JPL, we just saw that, this is a national celebratory thing that we landed the spacecraft on Mars. And the Mars rock, remember in 96 when Clinton held a press conference and said this could possibly have life in it. Not only did they not hide it, they hold a press conference for it. That's what would happen.
Let me make a counter.
Second of all,
can I make a counter argument really quickly?
Okay, but negative evidence like that counts for nothing. You can't just say we know they're real because we have no evidence.
No. What about all the people?
We have to have physical evidence. We have saucer-shaped aircraft. That doesn't mean, and they're real. That doesn't mean they're extraterrestrial.
But everyone wants evidence. No one will take testimony. I mean, testimony
doesn't count.
Well,
in science, it doesn't count.
You can't just have testimony can put a man in jail. Can have a man get put, to the death sentence. You have these people coming out, but even more so than that, it's all based on mathematics. And people knew that Pluto was there long before that we actually saw it. They thought black holes were there long before we actually found one. But we know there's life in the universe because we're here. And so why is it easier to be skeptical about life in the universe than be skeptical that there's...
Aren't you impressed, Michael? That's turning the other corner here. Aren't you impressed by all the people? I have an uncle, a very responsible guy, President of the United States, Jimmy Carter, others who said Hayden Burns was governor of Florida, swore he saw a thing go up, stopped, and then shoot, go do it. Would you discount them? Are they seeing things?
Okay, the plural of anecdotes is not data. It doesn't matter how many anecdotes you have. At some point, you actually have to have tangible physical evidence. Okay, they saw lots of things.
I just gotta say, this guy is really annoying. And Tom DeLonge in this video, you can tell, early years before Academy to the Stars, and it's just pretty cool to hear what he's saying. But the skeptical guy, oh my gosh. Oh, that doesn't stand up. That doesn't prove anything. And like Tom said, in court, these will stand up. So we'll continue with the video.
Okay, so first of all, the fact that it's a UFO, it's unidentified, doesn't mean it's extraterrestrial.
We're not saying that.
Even though 95% of all the sightings that have ever been made, we agree they're fully explicable. So we're only talking about 5% of these anomalies that we can't explain. What do you do with them? Nothing. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to explain every single anomaly. Science is different than the law. You can convict somebody on an eyewitness testimony. In science, you can't just have somebody say, I think I saw something on Mars. Right. Sorry. You actually have to have
We got a picture up on the board if you look around at it. This was taken in McMinnville, Oregon in 1950, photographed by Paul Trent. This is the first picture referred to as the Trent photograph. The latter was dead, and another one taken in Santa Ana. What the hell is that?
Looks like a hubcap to me.
Here's what
a hubcap.
Yeah, we did a whole show on TV on how to fake UFOs. You just do a hubcap.
I know about this photograph. Okay, I actually have an interview with the witnesses on camera about this. Okay, Miss Paul Trent. It was a case. 3 photographs were taken. There were multiple eyewitnesses, obviously points of reference, broad daylight, crystal clear, totally in focus, under scientific scrutiny in the Condon Report, which is a scientific study that was done very prominent scientists, and they concluded this was a real object, roughly 20 to 30 feet in diameter, a silvery metallic object that flew within sight of 2 witnesses. That was subjected to rigorous scientific analysis.
You're the lead vocalist in a famous punk rock band. What got you into this? Were you hallucinating one night?
No, I was in 7th grade.
What I know about punk rock, it could be you were out there.
I could have was out, a little bit of both, but
little joke there, folks.
I think when I was in junior high school, I just realized that the universe was a really big place, and in the 90s, the Deep Space Project by Hubble was doing these 11-day photographs. They would focus this telescope on a little tiny black piece of space, like holding a grain of sand, arm's length away, for 11 days. And they would get a 1-inch by 1-inch slide with 10,000 galaxies in it. Each galaxy can have 1 to 200 billion solar systems. That's why we're finding so many planets right now. And what I find interesting is it seems like you're angry, and it seems like most people that believe in UFOs take it the other extreme, and they get angry. They're real. No, they're not. But my whole thing is what we do know is that the universe is so massive and potentially infinite. Correct. And we do know that there's hundreds and hundreds of billions of planets and stars just in our galaxy alone.
But we don't know if there's life.
Well, we're here. So why would we be the only ones?
That's a separate question from have they come here.
But
Look,
if they...
It's two questions.
Fair enough.
For Michael in a second. Question. Have you ever...
I can't even say half a sentence.
What's the question?
Okay, there's two questions. Are they out there? Have they come here?
Right.
We have no evidence for either one. SETI scientists who make the same argument you just made for the probability of life being in the universe are very positive that it's worth the search because there probably is life out there. They're extremely skeptical that any life has come here. Why? Because we have no evidence of it. Not as...
Really? Okay. California. All the spotlights. All these munitions being fired at this one particular UFO. I believe it was 1940s, 1950s. Big deal. There's so much proof, so much evidence. Well, let's just write it off. There's no proof. It wasn't scientifically proven.
Single piece of physical evidence.
Coming up, an ex-CIA agent says that he's uncovered details about Roswell, New Mexico, and we'll get him on the phone next, so don't go away. We're back on Larry King Now. With us in the panel here is James Fox, Tom DeLong, and Michael Shermer. And joining us on the phone now is Chase Brandon. He is an ex-CIA agent who says he has reason to believe that what crashed at Roswell, New Mexico years ago was a UFO. What do you base that on, Chase?
Hi, Larry. Well, I have my own long-held beliefs that Roswell really occurred, as the people who were there at the time and reported what they saw in the debris field, what they saw and described as cadavers, what was originally admitted to by the U.S. Air Force, and then subsequently all that underwent a massive change. I believe people saw what they saw.
You recently tell us about that you found a box at CIA headquarters labeled Roswell containing photographs.
No, I didn't find the box. It was a box of historical items.
What did you see in the box? What was in the box?
If you want to imagine what has been described at the debris field, among other things,
was it confirmed?
Those kinds of things would be what I'm referring to in general. I won't say what was in there in particular.
Chase,
what I will say emphatically is I don't for a moment think my organization, and I still regard it that way, sits on and conspiratorially covers up anything that is the end-all, be-all determinant. We have been visited any time in the past, and certainly not in 1947.
I'm going to cut to the chase here.
Doesn't permit that.
Chase, do you believe in UFOs?
Absolutely. I believe we were visited many times in the past by visitors who came and assisted with science, math, perhaps sentience, all manner of other contributions made. They left behind the evidence of that in the form of the stonework and the other constructions that could not possibly have been built.
Chase, can I ask a quick question? Did you have confirmation in that folder that Roswell was an extraterrestrial spacecraft? Yes or no?
I saw what validated my long-held belief that Roswell was as it was reported, and that I believe, as many millions, if not hundreds of millions of people do, that we are not alone in this vast cosmos, and that.
So you had confirmation.
Yeah, and just like any other case back in the day, and like he was talking about ancient carvings of UFOs and alien beings, so on and so forth, all these massive structures that are still being found today that people that live right next door to it have no clue that it's there. I'm saying these could not have been built by ancient man, which at the same time, I know we've gotten to a certain amount of intelligence many times and been cut back down because we knew too much and we used it not for the greater good. Hopefully we learn our lesson this time. Otherwise we might be, probably not us, but maybe future us's taken away to another planet. Definitely not motherfucking Mars. You're not taking me there, but so many different cases.
You got it. Chase, thanks so much. That's very important. Chase Brandon, formerly of the CIA. Michael, now, this is not a kook.
I think the Druids would disagree with the Stonehenge was built by aliens. I find this really insulting to ancient peoples that they could not have moved stones around, therefore it must have been aliens. This is the kind of argument, it's the quality of argument you get for pro-UFOs.
I agree with Michael. It has some credentials.
I think it's a good argument. There's stones now that are 3 million.
You think Stonehenge was built by aliens too?
But hold on, no, I agree.
3 million, Balak, 3 million.
You're disagreeing with archaeologists who study this professionally?
Oh,
you think they were built by aliens?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Not by aliens. I just don't think
Let me just give you the bottom line.
I agree. No, Michael, I'm on the same page as you right now.
I'll just give you the bottom line here. I think it's going on here. I think it's what I call deities for atheists. It's sort of a myth-making religion for a secular age.
Well, this is
that the aliens are out there as godlike figures, and we want them to be there to save us, to rescue us, that sort of thing. I think it's myth-making.
I think they might be there, and I don't.
Well, they might be, but the idea that they've come here is a kind of a myth. We have to remember, in 1979, there was a survey done of pro-ufologists about the top 500 UFO encounters in the last 50 years. Roswell wasn't even on the list. Roswell became Roswell in the 1980s after television got involved and made a made-for-television film about it. Then the eyewitnesses came out, and suddenly decades later,
that's not entirely true, actually.
And so that's classic myth-making.
That's not entirely true.
Let me get a break. We'll come back with James. Coming up, does the government have information about UFOs that it won't share with the public?
Yes.
Next.
They definitely do, and they ain't sharing.
We're back with musician Tom DeLonge, with filmmaker James Fox, and with skeptic Michael Shermer, the publisher of Skeptic Magazine. According to a recent survey, more than a third of Americans believe UFOs are real. Do you think the government is deliberately withholding information?
The military generals and officials that I've interviewed from around the world have shared with me very unambiguous UFO encounter cases that they, during their official duties, have investigated. And some of the evidence that they were collected on scene was sent off to an unknown government agency, never to be seen or heard from again. I've heard that from so many American military witnesses. I had from Gordon Cooper, who was the last American astronaut to go up in space alone, told me that there was a flying saucer that landed at Edwards Air Force Base circa 1953, 54, that was filmed on camera. He had the film footage developed, and that he personally saw it. It was real good footage, broad daylight, you could see it, and that he personally handed the film footage over, and it was never seen or heard from again. So based on all those stories that I've heard, and once again, I'd have to call this a preponderance of evidence, I'm convinced that there's a cover-up.
And so the obvious question, Michael, is, assuming what he said is correct, the obvious question is one word: why?
Why? Well, I can't think of a reason why.
I can't either.
But even so, where is the film? Look, the next time an abductee goes up to the mothership, grab one of the little widgets off the dashboard and bring it back so we can look at it. In other words, photographs and grainy videos and anecdotes about things that go bump in the night, that's not evidence in science. As we've seen with the Curiosity spacecraft, all the technological scientific equipment it has on there to prove that there was life on Mars, they're not going to accept just a grainy video or a photograph. Right. We actually have to have real scientific evidence, and we have none.
Assuming the public thinks it, or a great deal of the public thinks it, wants to believe it, I don't know anybody that's afraid of it. Why?
Well, I think I was saying earlier off camera, I think that there are national security implications. I think anything that upsets a geopolitical order is a national security implication. I think that that when you look at the collective evidence and you know that if we're going to base everything specifically off science, I just think there's a lot of things in human life that you can't base off science, religion being one of them. I don't have that particular faith, but I know a lot of people do, and they have for thousands of years, and one man or a way of thinking or a magazine can't change that for a millennia.
No, you can't change faith.
You can't change faith. And I think
this isn't faith.
Well, to him it's science, but to me it's just a belief in life, the life and universe, and that comes with an element of consciousness in the human soul, and what that means. And
if anything, it would unify our fractious political world. Why not? Let's.
To me, it's a plus.
But
There's
I
no minus to this.
But I've asked that specific question so many times to military generals and astronauts. Why the hell would anyone want to cover this up? And they say, think of it this way, James. You don't necessarily have control of your airspace. And something that can whiz around with impunity and fly rings around your fastest jets, you don't necessarily want to disclose that nature of information because it would make us seem slightly vulnerable.
They never come to New York, Washington, Los Angeles. They go to Waka Waka
No,
Falls.
they go to Washington. This is a very, very important point that people need to understand, that scientists have investigated on an official capacity UFOs for the government. And this is a quote from Dr. Jalen Hynek, who investigated UFOs as scientific advisor. He was an astronomer from 1947 to 69. It started off as Project Sign, it went to Project Grudge, and ended up as Project Blue Book. And he said, there is much more evidence to indicate that we are dealing with a most real phenomenon of undetermined origin.
That's okay. Undetermined is not extraterrestrial. That just means we don't know.
And
in science, it's always
so you might agree there's phenomena out there. Could be phenomena.
Could be ball lightning. Could be experimental aircraft. Look, before we knew about the stealth bomber, that would have been a freaky thing to see. Absolutely. Now it flies over the Rose Bowl here in Pasadena every January 1st, and we know what it is. But so in 20 years, what are we going to find out about what's flying out there now that looks spooky? And in fact, it was just an experimental test spy aircraft.
Well, the only issue is that the stuff's been around for so long. And Jacques Vallée, an astrophysicist from France, put out his book Wonders in the Sky, where he chronicled the 500 UFO events that have happened since the late 1700s. I mean, we weren't building stealth fighters then, and these are real. And I don't know what they are. I'm not saying they're aliens. I'm definitely not. You're so biased on one side. That scares me too.
No. Look, the principle of Skeptic Magazine is extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And we don't have extraordinary evidence. We have anecdotes and photographs and blurry videos.
That's true. This is a very interesting point, because you guys just did a complete turn, 180 degree, on climate change. And what was the basis for that?
Cumulative evidence, rock solid
Cumulative evidence. Okay, that's interesting.
Money.
So not just anecdotes, not just people saying, I think it's getting warmer, actual measurements.
Well, these were science.
So in the case of UFOs, bring us the alien body. Bring us the spacecraft so we can all see it. That's all, and then I'll change my mind.
Let me get a break.
That's not the only evidence, though.
More with the aliens, and we'll be right back.
I swear to God, this guy, he's so annoying.
We're back in our next
Not Larry King, but this skeptic guy. The guy that's bought off or threatened by the government.
Topic. A couple of other things. The abduction stories. You buy them, Tom?
Well, I think they're interesting.
People have been taken?
Well, when you follow the studies of Bud Hopkins and John Mack, and I think those are important, because John Mack was the head of the psychology department over at Harvard, so he's no quack. There's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of reports that are happening all over the world, different demographics, different age groups, gender.
What the heck?
Generation, they all tie together with certain elements. So it's scary either that it really is some kind of extraterrestrial thing, or it's scary because they're all having the same hallucination.
That they were taken.
Well, just either way, it's scary to me that so many hundreds of thousands of people are having that kind of dream sequence, whether it's real or not. And so they're all coming to a conclusion because there's craft and there's these beings, and they're giving them information.
There are a handful
Frankly, though, if you get enough stories, couldn't you dream about it? Logically, you could dream about it. I could dream about it tonight. My wife will definitely dream about it. She will be abducted tonight.
There's the 1975 case that happened in Snowflake, Arizona. There were 7 eyewitnesses to that account. They were loggers up in Snowflake. They were just finishing a long day's work. They're driving out. They saw what looked like one of the trees on fire. They saw this perfectly, up close flying saucer disc-shaped object just sort of suspended about treetop level. One of the guys jumps out of the truck, runs towards the object. 6 guys screaming against their will, "Don't do it!" And he runs under, and I guess he got affected by apparently by whatever force it was that was driving this thing, and he got thrown back. They left him for dead. Argued in the car, came back around him. Long story short, they all passed lie detector tests, all 7 of them. And Travis Walton disappeared for 5 days. Very, very credible case.
How do you respond to that, Michael?
First of all, the Travis Walton case is quite different from that. He just did not pass a lie detector test because I was on a TV show and I saw him do it. Second, he was a logger who was late getting a job done. He had already fascinated about, or sort of fantasized about UFOs and talked about this before this incident happened. He told his buddies, "Let's tell this story," and they told this.
And that's funny to me because he's saying earlier, testimony, so on and so forth, does not count in science. Well, polygraphs don't hold up in court as evidence, so how are you going to make that evidence? Whatever works for him, he's using for his theory, excuse, etc.
Anybody can tell stories like this.
I've never heard that.
Most of the I wrote about this. So most of the abduction cases happen during
understand that they were
during
suspected
sleep.
of murder.
They
were suspected of murder.
You realize that, right? Most of the sleep alien abduction experiences happen when people are asleep. This is called sleep paralysis. It happened in the Middle Ages. They called it nightmares. The terror that comes in the night, the being that sits on your chest, the sense presence, the probing and sexual stuff. All that's been happening for centuries. It happens in people's minds while they're asleep.
Not all of it happens when they're dreaming. There's many cases where people are driving during the middle of the afternoon and have missing time.
The other abduction cases happen under hypnosis. And hypnosis is not a reliable way of pulling a memory out because memories are not recorded like videotapes and you rewatch them.
Since 1/3 of the public believes it, do you think now you're in show business, Tom. Do you think those 2/3, the other 2/3 that don't think you're kook?
No, I just think there's always an early adopting crowd, I think you choose what you believe, and if you're going to be really biased one way or the other, you're probably going to lose. No way, and there's other people who are like, everything's a UFO. But like I was saying earlier, if 1/3 believes, I just think the other 2/3 will come on soon, and I think that goes, if you follow
80 million people.
If you follow human beings, no matter what, it's like the first people to buy the iPhone, and then pretty much everyone has it, and the Earth was flat, for the longest time, and Galileo and all those guys were going to get burned at the stake for finding new stars, and the whole universe didn't rotate around us. So I just think the super conservative movement is not going to predict the future. They're just not going to run from the past.
Sure, they laughed at the Wright brothers, but they also laughed at the Marx brothers. Being laughed at doesn't make you wrong. Right? Most of the people in the history have been wrong. We celebrate the Galileos because they turn out to be right. Most of the people that have these crazy ideas turn out not to be right, and we forget about them.
I've yet to meet someone who's invested a relatively serious amount of time looking into the more serious aspects of the UFO phenomenon that's concluded there wasn't anything to it. As much as I respect Michael...
Carl Sagan?
Me? Carl Sagan, but
lots of astronomers.
You're saying that you've actually got...
As much as I respect Michael... Oy. That guy can fuck right off.
But hold on, let me ask you a question. Did you go into the field? Did you meet the eyewitnesses? Did you talk to the military generals? Did you talk to the FAA officials? Did you review the photographs? Did you really do that?
No. He's a puppet.
Because you just told me that Travis didn't pass the lie detector test. I just hung out with Travis.
I said I was on a TV show.
I just hung out with
Coming
Travis.
up, James, Tom, and Michael will take your questions about UFOs. Okay, here we go. In our final moments, we've got some questions from fans on Twitter. Nana KP, that must be her nomenclature, right? Ask, how do aliens fit into theories like evolution and creation?
Actually, this is a good question because if there is extraterrestrial life, what is the chances that they would be bipedal primates like us with some gnarly stuff on their forehead speaking English with a weird accent?
Do they have their own god?
Chances are zip. They're not going to be like us.
Well, I'm not going to jump to that conclusion because that just seems, once again, that you're coming to a conclusion. I think that
it's very human to think that you look like us.
Well, I'm not even saying that. One of my favorite expressions is if the universe is truthfully infinite, then there is infinite possibility, and you can't confine it and you can't limit it. So there probably are pieces of life that look like human, and there probably are that don't. I mean, if the universe goes on that deep.
What's the most compelling bit of evidence that you've heard? I mean, you've sat on panels with me, with the former governor of Arizona.
I've been doing this for years.
Yeah.
The most compelling to me was Governor Burns of Florida and President Carter.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And the governor of
Arizona. He said he was about a mile across.
No, when I hear my wife's uncle, he's a very responsible guy. I seem they could have imagined it too. Yes. I'm open to it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not totally skeptical.
Not imagined. They perceive something very real. The question is, what is it?
We have with least one. Diego T. Rivera on Twitter wants to know: have you ever seen a UFO or ever had a close encounter? Any of you?
I've seen a couple unidentified. Yeah, I don't know what they were, but it's funny. Years ago, you might have heard this. You're able to buy night vision, right? And you can see certain things with them. And if you get Generation 4 or greater, you can see a lot of stuff. So I had to fill out all these papers with the State Department. I can't leave the country with these things. I swear to God. And I spent so much money on these things. And I'll go out. It took about a year, and I saw a couple really, really great things zipping through the atmosphere, right angles, arcing 180 degrees of the horizon in less than 3 seconds. Don't know what it was.
Put a camera on.
Don't know what it was, but yeah,
birds. Birds do this. A lot of sightings.
Birds totally go from one horizon to the other in 3 seconds.
You think it was a horizon? You're like this. It's like right in front of you.
That's the Zoom bird.
I wouldn't want to know what I think.
They're bugs.
Weird stuff.
You know, we mentioned before that
no, you don't want to go there.
They're always skeptics. Before we close it, I used to imagine when I did a radio talk show. Could imagine if someone was doing a talk show in 1908, and they take the next call. Yes, sir. The next call is from Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. Yeah. Hey, Larry, how are you? My name's Orville. Here with my brother Wilbur. What can I do for you, Orville? We flew today. What'd you say, Orville? We flew today, Larry. Got a little apparatus here. We built it, and we went up in the air. Listen, Orville, put Wilbur on. Wilbur, you there? I hear, Larry. You saying you flew? We flew, Larry. Okay, are you calling from a bar? So there's always skeptics, with apologies to Michael. We thank James Fox and Tom DeLong and Michael Shermer for being with us. A fascinating discussion on UFOs. And as you go to sleep tonight, they're
coming. Man, I'm sure gonna miss that guy. He was one of a kind, just like Art Bell, and I was so surprised when I heard about this guy. I'd never heard about him before, because mostly I'd listen to my CDs. If I had a record player, I'd be listening to a record player, but just listening to music, not really to news or anything else. That's my medicine, music. I'll have an occasional hit off the bowl. That's my tea time. Time to recenter. But yeah. This guy, I swear to God, this Michael dude, what was it, Michael Shermer? Michael Shermer. Are you there, Michael? I gotta double check. Jeez. I gotta turn down my volume too. Sorry if I'm blowing out your eardrums. Hold on. I'm looking. Oh, this is another one that we might do here in a little bit. Wow. He's had so many epic guests, and it's amazing to hear people in their early days and what they're saying these days, and to see where they're generally coming from in the beginning of what they're saying. But oh my goodness, that to me was just, that guy was so annoying. I don't know about you, but they showed a lot of restraint with this fella. It's like, I want to backhand you into next week. I don't know. I know there's a lot of people out there that haven't had experiences, were raised a certain way. You know, our parents from day one, generally, unless they're cool and open, would be telling us there's no monster under the bed, or there's nothing going on. It's just your imagination. I don't know, just to discount people's experiences and to take away their credibility, to down talk them, to make them feel stupid. That's why I like places like this and SOR and other fields. Like, people can come together with like-mindedness, open-mindedness at least. Feel free to share your experiences. We can all share our experiences back and forth and feel like we're at home instead of being judged and ridiculed. And I don't know, my kids are lucky because I had experienced many things at a young age. When they come to me with things, I will try to rationalize it. Like last night, my husband looked dumbfounded because there was a noise and the kids automatically go to, it's a ghost. And I was like, no, I think it was just this. And he's like, did you just say like it wasn't a ghost or haunting and you're actually rationalizing instead of agreeing that it is something paranormal? And I'm like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with rationalizing and figuring out what it actually is, because not every bump and ding and whatever weird noise in the house is a ghost. You know, could be mice, could be the cat, could be the dog. You know, house settling if you have a new house. But there are hauntings, there are things out there, and it's hard to explain it because it's beyond the realm of, for a lot of people, reality. The normal. That's why it's paranormal. Jason, aka Jojo the Slap Boy, in the chat room. So he's talking about awakening. First he was talking about Mr. Michael, whatever the fuck his name was. A very healthy skeptic. Not spelled, you know, exactly the way it should be, but it really spoke a great truth. Will aliens be part of the Great Awakening? It's a new level yet to be defined. Maybe a LARP. I think our Great Awakening timeline moved closer recently, and I agree. Like, so many awakenings happening, not only within our children that are born. Children are so awake, and then it's due to us or different things that close them off. But then adults that haven't had awakenings before or had contact with a spiritual or alien or UFO or whatever world are having experiences or having awakenings. Some people call them downloads or uploads or whatever the hell you want to call them. There's a change about. It's pretty interesting times that we live in. There's so many times within my life I've said, I never believed in the past that I'd ever experience anything like this. Like, you can read, if your family were journal keepers or you do the family tree, you go on to DNA or Ancestry or whatever.com, check out your family tree, or try to put your own information in there, and DNA tests. Those can save you a lot of work. There's so many things we're figuring out. It's amazing. And I kind of derailed there. Like, where was I going with that? There's just an awakening, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And there's so many things happening that we never thought we'd see or experience in our lifetimes. Like back in the past, we could imagine it happening someday, perhaps, unfortunately, like to our children or our children's children or beyond. Just kind of takes you aback and makes you think about stuff. But like I said originally, I believe in UFOs, even though I didn't experience them until 2012, I believe it was. That was the first time I had ever witnessed a UFO. Then again, in the same year, same sort of UFO, I want to say entity, but it wasn't. It seemed intelligent, but it was a UFO orb. They talk about Foo Fighters, different things like that. This is what I saw at first. And then later on, I actually captured pictures of them as orbs. And then do they shapeshift or do other things come in? Because the ones I captured after that, and I think they kind of shapeshift. They can do whatever the hell they want. But the next set of pictures I got during that evening were little individual-sized shuttlecraft, basically. all in the same formation throughout the night. If one's pointing up, they're all pointing up. Forward, forward, to the side, other side, downward, whatever. They were all in the same formation, although quite a ways apart. And then, right before they disappear, you just see a ball of light again. And then, zip, they're gone. What the hell was that, Cletus? I'm not sure, Thelma, but maybe it's just them swamp gases. There's so much out there that's unexplained. I think it's healthier to be open-minded. Don't be naive. Don't fall for everything. Don't believe everything. Listen to what you're hearing. Listen to what you're seeing. Make up your own mind. You know, you're smart. You can do this. Healthy to be skeptical. Don't be skeptical. like Mr. Michael Messner. Is that what his name was? Messner? Yeah. That guy was so annoying. And he reminds me of these government peeps that are paid and told what to say, what not to say. Oh, they told us about this rock that had certain life forms on it, and so they tell us everything. No, the hell they don't. If you're smart, you've been around for a while, and there's younger people too that are so woke, it's insane. It like blows your pants off. You're like, what? They're coming so far, so fast. It's really mind-blowing, but they're out there, and there is something after death, you know, like Mr. Larry King Live was wondering, is there life after death? What exactly is happening? And a lot of people near death talk about these things. My grandpa and I actually had a very lengthy conversation about the other side and what I do in the paranormal and what my beliefs are, and he was just so drawn in, and I know I've told you guys this before, but we have other listeners as well. But my grandpa, like, you know, he talked to me about this, and I was not able to see them a lot. They lived in California. I live in Colorado, and I don't have a lot of money. I'm a broke bitch. So I go when I can, and that wasn't very often. And sometimes when you're out there, like, things get in the way, like in-laws or whatnot, to keep you from going there. Ain't no way I'm taking a bus load of Petersons over to my grandparents' house. I would be disowned. Don't ever do that again. When I stayed in his man cave, while we're waiting for the funeral, I was amazed when I looked around at all of his books, and he even had a Life magazine, from when Pearl Harbor happened and the war after that happened. He had a pristine copy of that Life magazine, which I hope I get, but he had so many paranormal books on the paranormal and other things that he believed in. But when I saw those, I was like, oh my God, like what I said, he actually listened to, and he actually took it to heart and did his own investigating, which I love. It's so important. Don't just take everything what people say. Don't take everything as they say it. Do your homework. Do some digging, like Larry King said. Dig in there and find all the information you can. It's so important to do that, to get to the root of things, because we all have a gut instinct. Listen to it. When you read these things and things ring true to you, take it to heart and believe in those things. Don't take everything for how it's told to you or what you should believe. Make up your own mind. But on that note, we are going to go to our second music break. We got Tamra Bubble from the greater New York area with Out the Mud. She's also going to be singing I'm It, Natural Born Killer, as well as Pringles, which is a very, very nice, crunchy little snack. Then we got Griff from Toronto, Canada with Let Freedom Ring, as well as Prime Example with Dancing Machine, and they're from Milwaukee. That's one of Roy Washington's bands that he has worked with in the past. And he is our musical host. Thank you, Roy Washington from Quest. We really appreciate you. But enjoy the music. We'll be right back after this musical break.
I get that feeling under me time, and I'm okay a little out at sea. So close to heaven in the daytime, promise you'll keep sunshine on my feet. Somebody pinch me, this is juicy, juicy. Squeeze out this warm glow on my
let you guys or make you guys listen to that one again. We're actually going to go to, because we had that one on the first break, and it's a really groovy song. I really dig it, but we're going to go on to other things, so we're not doing a repeat. We got Griff with Let Freedom Ring, and I love this song, and it's so true to today, but you guys enjoy.
Okay, yo, here's the scoop. You can still be a slave, you're whipped and loop, that's the truth. Got big houses, nice cars, that's real cute, but it doesn't mean nothing, you ain't free to choose. When I say free to choose, no alarm clock, don't gotta hit the snooze. The world is backwards, I'm so confused. They say freedom of speech, but when you speak your mind, they blow a fuse. Just being honest, common sense and common, it's kind of ironic. My freedom, recently bought it, now I'm a target. If I do the wrong thing or say the wrong thing, come on man, let freedom ring. Yeah. United States become divided states. The world is filled with all kinds of shades, and still resegregate. Parents separate from the children, that's not okay. We should be free to laugh and play. Do it now, before you pass away. Fight for what's right, enough for everybody to get a piece of the pie. Brainwash, social media, full of lies. Go to work, pay bills, then you die. Need a breakaway, guns, get rid of the AKs. Our ancestors paved way since the slave days, but we still hurting. Carry that burden. Stop playing victim, beat the system. Love is love, it should be shown. Can't grow unless you leave your comfort zone. This I know, I learned all this from the mentorship. Kids don't know what independent is. Take advantage what your parents did. Go against the grid, you have to. Like going to the bathroom, learn the right songs. Cause of Matthew, liberty like statue. They call now the present, cause it's a gift. It should be cherished, last name fearless, not Harris. All thanks to my parents' parents. Now, love the last name every time that I hear it, cause I know what it represents. Climb the fence, so now I got freedom. Such a beautiful thing. Freedom. Such a wonderful thing. Freedom. Such a beautiful thing. Freedom. Such a wonderful thing.
suit, but I'm looking dapper. When I ain't in the booth, yeah, I'm still gon' snap it. Homie, you ain't gotta lie, cause it's the truth we after. And I'm without the beef for the clout. I'm the one you shouldn't believe the rumors about. Spitting and giving you brain tumors and zoomer lessons. Mover and a shaker with the flow. Soon as I pop you toes. If you had any ego or ego, let go. If you had any doubt about me, just know I'm pleasing to the ears and the eyes and the throat. And I ain't giving you no more details till we talk pillow. I ain't nowhere close to my greatness. I don't do all that boasting, just make hits. Yo, I don't do all that posting, naked pics for likes, and I ain't make this up, I can't fake this. Seeing it, loving it, feeling it, breathing it. Saying it, doing it, running it, barely. I'm a natural winner. I'm the one that you invite to meet your parents for dinner. Cause I can take a couple L's and I'ma bounce right back. Just so you and all your friends can hit the bounce like that. Cause I'm seeing it, loving it, feeling it, breathing it. Saying it, doing it, running it, barely. I'm a natural winner. I'm the one that you invite to meet your parents for dinner. Cause I can take a couple L's and I'ma bounce right back. Just so you and all your friends can hit the bounce like that. Cause I'm a lover and a fighter and a giver and a pleasure and pain and boss deliver it out. Yeah, I make this look real easy. Everybody hate Chris, but I'ma win like breezy. But I started later on the way to the top and can't stop, so don't push not one button on this elevator. They try to push my buttons and start levitating, rise above it all. I can tell that you fake when you're shaking my hand, and the smile on your face shows me even you're greeting and meeting and love is hating. I'm actually amazing, but modestly saying I ain't waiting for cosigns or playlists, cause I ain't nowhere close to my greatness. I don't do all that boasting, just make hits. Yo, I don't do all that posting, naked pics for likes, and I ain't make this up, I can't fake this. Seeing it, loving it, feeling it, breathing it. Saying it, doing it, running it, barely. I'm a natural winner. I'm the one that you invite to meet your parents for dinner. Cause I can take a couple L's and I'ma bounce right back. Just so you and all your friends can hit the bounce like that. Cause I'm seeing it, loving it, feeling it, breathing it. Saying it, doing it, running it, barely. I'm a natural winner. I'm the one that you invite to meet your parents for dinner. Cause I can take a couple L's and I'ma bounce right back. Just so you and all your friends can hit the bounce like that. Cause I'm the one you gon' call when you're lonely. I'm the new girl on the block, you gon' show off to your homies. I'm telling you now, we gon' vibe in the booth. How you crave another feature like I'm your sweet tooth. All my people wanna see me shine, but I don't pray for you to fall, cause I don't play with karma. When I slide through, it's gon' be bad timing. Like, watch out, little homie, watch out. I'm
show call. Step, 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 baby, follow my lead. You and me showing off for the club to see. No time to get rest, we doing our thing. Cha-cha, then we dip, top it off with a spin. Glide across the floor, let's do it again. By the way, little mama, can we be friends? I can't let this night just end. I really wanna know if I can see you again. Give me your number, we'll get back on the scene. We can hit another club if that's your thing. We'll be partners in crime, you and me, as we ripping up floors like two dancing machines.
Like Pringles in the can, all the money really got me dancing. Pringles in the whip, I be stacking them chips like Pringles in the can, all the money really got me dancing. Big baby money grip, I be stacking them chips. Pringles in the can, all the money really got me dancing. Pringles in the whip, I be stacking them chips like Pringles in the can, all the money really got me dancing. Big baby money grip, I be stacking them. I ain't never been afraid of a strange beat. New track from the crates, but the same me. Lights on, bills paid, bring the same heat. Couldn't picture me spend the same unless you bring me. Low key, humble brag, never change me. New money coming in, the bank's changing. The quarters to dollars to checks every hour. That money come in when I sleep or I shower. That's motivation, that dedication. I can see my dreams, I'm already chasing. That bezel clean, watch me embrace it. I'm a single girl that already taken like a stick-up kid. They already shaking. Old Harlem, Brooklyn, being known for break-ins. Bubble on deck, being known for caking. Stacking and saving that move up out the hood money. This that, we been eating good money. This that, really wish you would, homie. This that, see you laughing but broken funny. So get up out the hood, homie. Ain't no rentals over here, dummy. And no, they don't really think that we own it. Who we been poppin', look on. Love the money, but the money live a long time and on. Yeah, them bills, look at the money with my own ground. That move up out the hood money. This that, we been eating good money. This that, really wish you would, homie. Who we been poppin' like Pringles in the can, all the money really got me dancing. Pringles in the whip, I be stacking them chips like Pringles in the can, all the money really got me dancing. Big baby money grip, I be stacking them chips. Pringles in the can, all the money really got me dancing. Pringles in the whip, I be stacking them chips like Pringles in the can, all the money really got me dancing. Big baby money grip, I be stacking them. I ain't never been afraid of investing. I'm talking more than dice games and I'm scratch offs. Lottery jackpots and $100 million. So who you think they making money on the backs of? Ain't no gambling today. Ain't no gambling with my money that I built up. Got my money strong, yeah, my money long, it's my money song. Not one business, but no business. Natural growth, I mean no business. New growth like my natural hair. Yeah, I'm 10 toes down in the show business. Like back up off, man. Ain't no move around, no business. Bring the track up with the tracks out in the booth way. Steady running your mind, talking this and that. But it's that, move up out the hood money. This that, we been eating good money. This that, really wish you would, homie. This that, see you laughing but broken funny. So get up out the hood, homie. Ain't no rentals over here, dummy. And no, they don't really think that we own it. Who we been poppin', look on. Love the money, but the money live a long time and on. Yeah, them bills, look at the money with my own ground. That move up out the hood money. This that, we been eating good money. This that, really wish you would, homie. Who we been poppin' like Pringles in the can, all the money really got me dancing. Pringles in the whip, I be stacking them chips like Pringles in the can, all the money really got me dancing. Big baby money grip, I be stacking them chips.
Welcome back to We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Tonight we have been talking about, and listening to Mr. Larry King. He passed away yesterday, so January 23rd, 2021. We've been listening to some of his UFO interviews. Last hour we had a plethora of guests on there. One I did not quite care for, but this one, and I promise just this one more, then we'll go on to a book written by local chicks in my area. It's called Ghost Tracks, Haunting Tales Along the Rails, and it's by Elizabeth A. Green and Suzy Garrison Meyers. Okay, so we have this last video that we're going to do of Mr. Larry King live. This comes from Daily Motion, and it originally was put out by Aura TV, and it's called Larry King Now was the name of the show instead of Larry King Live. On this one, he has Bob Lazar, who claimed in 1989 he reverse engineered an alien spacecraft in a secret government project. Says he spoke out because he feared for his life, which when I read that, I was like, that's different, because a lot of people don't speak out because they fear for their lives. So this is a little different. Oh, man. Of course, we have an ad first. Loading. Hello?
Did they tell you not to say anything?
Oh, they made
Hold on.
it very clear. Yeah.
Why did you go public?
That's a long, involved story.
The short of it is that he was afraid for his life.
Why?
It had to do with my relationship at the time and the security clearance. One of the things was you had to have not only no connection to foreign governments and a standard top secret clearance, but as you probably know, with all high security clearances, you have to have a stable home life too. Well, there were things going on at home. They had my phone line monitored, and I was a candidate for an unstable family life, as they called it.
Did they try to label you as nuts?
No, not nuts. They, in fact, wanted me back in the project very badly, but they didn't know if I was going to be too stressed out to keep things quiet, and I started getting concerned when we started getting followed every place I went to. That's the only time that I finally started telling a couple friends, hey, if I disappear, this is what I was doing, and when I took them out to the site to show them.
Watch new episodes of Larry King Now Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on demand on Aura TV and Hulu.
Check it out. Am I tuning in the Martians? No, I don't know what you're talking about. That's crazy talk. That's just crazy talk. Okay, let's see what this one is. I know I said one more. I didn't know it was just a minute. Okay. I'm really going to miss that guy, but it's really cool because you can always refer back to past interviews, so on and so forth. Okay, now my internet is acting weird. What's happening? Loading. What the crack? What the crack is going on? Okay, we did that.
Not to say anything.
Oh, they made that very clear.
Moving forward. Okay, so my back arrow's not moving for when I first looked up Larry King and his UFO interviews. Hold on 1 second. Uno momento, por favor. Larry. That's not how you spell it. Yeah, and with the Larry King thing, I thought for sure that was going to be, man, 87, that's a ripe old age. I didn't see this one. So Larry King, the legendary broadcaster known for his frank and approachable interviews, has died at the age of 87, according to a statement from his company, Aura Media. King died the morning of January 23rd at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles after being hospitalized for COVID-19 earlier this January. Born Lawrence Zeiger in Brooklyn, New York in 1933, King began his decades-long career in broadcast media at a Miami radio station in the 1950s, where he covered news, sports, and DJ'd. In the late 1970s, King graduated from the Miami market to a national syndicated nighttime radio show, which eventually led to his flagship interview series, Larry King Live. Let me turn down my volume a little bit so don't blow out your earballs. And that was on CNN. From 1985 to 2010, King interviewed everyone from sitting presidents and world leaders to tabloid buzzy celebrities and UFO sighting believers. King won 2 Peabody Awards for his work on both radio and television. Throughout his career, he also poked fun at his persona with appearances as himself on shows like The Simpsons, 30 Rock, and Gravity Falls. After departing from CNN in 2010, King founded Aura TV and continued conducting high-profile interviews on his news series, Larry King Now. In 2013, he also began airing a weekly politics-based interview series, Politicking with Larry King, both of which King worked on until his death. King is survived by his sons, Larry Jr., Chance, and Cannon. So again, it was nice to listen to some of his interviews that he did on UFOs and such, as well as to look back on his epic life. 3 boys, no girl. Pretty cool. So rest in peace, Larry King. Man, damn you, COVID-19. So this book here that I was talking about earlier, called Ghost Tracks, Haunting Tales Along the Rails, by Elizabeth A. Green and Suzy Garrison Meyers, and these are both local Durangotangs here in the Durango area, and they did a lot of work to do this book. These stories are based on real people and the things that happen to them in life and in death. And like I said, I went down to Maria's bookstore and bought this book right after I did the investigation at the Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad Museum. It was pretty epic, pretty insane. So let me see what we got here. So chapter 1 starts with Durango. The Durango Depot is a lively place day and night. Passengers crowd the waiting room, eagerly anticipating the next train to Silverton, as they have done for more than 130 years. They mill around the shops looking for souvenirs. They check out brochures in the racks, get a cup of coffee, check their belongings to make certain they have all they need for the day. What they don't do, can't, really, because they aren't listening for them, is hear the ghosts that inhabit the depot. The spirits lurk in dark places throughout the day. Night is their time to come out and play. And that's just what they seem to do, play. They tap on walls, they flit through rooms, they knock things to the floor, they open inaccessible doors, they laugh and they stomp and they tease. Who are they? Passengers who never completed their journey. People searching for a traveler who didn't arrive. Railroad workers who want to spend eternity in this place they love. They aren't saying, go into the coffee shop and stand in front of the counter. Now look up. Do you see the door and the latch that holds it closed? How does it open itself during the night? And how can cups fly off the espresso machine when no one is touching them? Why is the sound of a woman's laughter coming from the waiting room when it's absolutely, completely empty? What is scratching at the walls or dragging something across the floor? People working after hours in the upstairs offices hear footsteps when they know they're alone. A cat named Cinders that lived up there for 3 years refused to venture anywhere close to a storage room workers call the dungeon. More than once, she faced that seemingly empty room, hissed, and arched her back. No amount of coaxing could persuade her to go one step closer to the dungeon door. Listen and watch after the waiting room has emptied out. Can you hear them? Can you see them? Can you feel them? So the first story around the depot is called Graveyard Shift. The rail yard is a tangle of shadows and shapes after the sun goes down. In the black of night, it's easy to believe in ghosts. They seem to hide in the shadows, watching, whispering to one another, laughing. People hear them in footsteps of phantom children running through the cars. They feel them in a sudden chill on a warm summer evening. Shine a light in their direction, and they're gone like a breath on a cold night. The night watchman checked his flashlight, as he did every night. Then he headed out. He had plenty of time to think about ghosts as he started another graveyard shift. He had heard a story about a woman who brought dinner to her husband late one night. She asked a man working on a locomotive if he could tell her where her husband was. He didn't answer, wouldn't even look up at her. When she found her husband, she told him about the unfriendly man. "What are you talking about?" he said. "I'm the only one here." Could it have been a ghost? The watchman wondered. He trudged from car to car, shining his light under and into each one. It was dark between the rows of silent rail cars. He could barely see where he was going as he turned the corner of the roundhouse. His feet sank into the soft layers of sand and soot, reminding him of how sand keeps locomotive wheels from slipping on the tracks. No worries about slipping here, he thought. His shoulders relaxed, and it was a quiet, uneventful night, at least so far. Up ahead, a locomotive stood next to the ash pit. The sight of those big steam engines always made him think back to his move to Durango. His dream had been to work for the railroad, and here he was. Someday he hoped he would work in one of the steam locomotives. He imagined stoking the fire with one shovel full of coal after another. An engineer, that was what he really wanted to be. He thought about how it would feel to keep a watchful eye on all the gauges, slow and speed up the train, blow steam, sound the whistle, all while making his way through the Animas Canyon to Silverton. Someday, he thought as he approached the locomotive, but right now there was no one in the cab. He could indulge his fantasy at least for a few minutes. So he climbed up and sat on the engineer's seat, then looked out across the rail yard. Someday, he repeated silently, as his mind drifted to the canyon and the mountains. He took his head, blinked, and looked again. Something moved over near the old sand house. He had just walked by the building and hadn't seen anything. He remembered a sign on a building over that way, one that warned employees to be careful. There was minimal clearance ahead, and anyone or anything sitting on top or hanging on the side of a car would be knocked off, hurt, maybe even killed. They call it clearing a man, he remembered. Up there, a man wouldn't clear. The night watchman knew railroading was dangerous work. He had heard stories about people being crushed or burned when trains were derailed or overturned. He shuddered the thought of such a gruesome death. Here in the rail yard, late at night, it hadn't felt dangerous, at least up to now. But there was something out there, and it was his job to find out who or what it was. Had he missed something when he walked by the sand house? He knew drifters sometimes hung out there at night. Hobos, the railroad employees called them. Some nights, young people partied there too. He would have to get down from the locomotive and look more closely. He decided to slip over there quietly. He would have plenty of time later to call out the demand that a person identify himself. However, the watchman couldn't see his face. The figure was pale, cream-colored, a human shape. He could see a head, arms, body, and legs. Still, there was something strange about the shape. The arms seemed to be normal size for a man. The head seemed to be the right size too, but the legs, what was wrong with the legs? As the figure moved away, he realized the legs were too short. They looked like they'd been cut off at the knee. If he could just get closer, he could tell for sure. I think this story is about legs. Man, I'm getting goosebumps. I actually have pictures on my flare camera of legs. He quickened his pace, hurrying but not running. There were unseen hazards on the dark ground. He didn't need to fall and hurt himself, especially now. But as he neared the sand house, the apparition vanished. The watchman spent the rest of his shift scrutinizing every dark corner and wondering. Whatever he had seen, he knew it was real, not smoke, or a trick of light and shadow, or a product of his imagination during a long, lonely night in the yard. The next day, he asked some of the old-timers if they had seen or heard anything like it. No one admitted to seeing it, but they sure had ideas about what it was. They talked about a terrible accident that had happened on the Denver and Rio Grande back in 1909. They said a brakeman had stepped off a moving train and fallen under the wheels. The night watchman felt a chill at the possibility. Could it have been the ghost of that poor man? Sometimes late at night, people hear the ghost dragging himself through the sand and gravel in the yard. Slap, slap, scrape. Slap, slap, scrape. Slap, slap, scrape. The brakeman's ghost wearily slaps first one hand to the ground, then the other as he drags his body around the rail yard in an endless quest. If they listen very carefully, they might hear his mournful plea, "Where are they? My legs, I need my legs." That's the first time I read that story. I had actually heard stories about legs, and I heard that he had fallen off the train and his legs were cut off and he tried to drag himself. This was at least, I think, 6 blocks back to the train house from where he fell off, right behind where the Durango Herald is today. But yeah, poor guy. I got a picture of him sitting in the train car and his legs from the knees down were missing. And there's also stories that are told by people that work there about a man where you can see him with the upper portion of his body, and sometimes you'll see the lower portion walking around too, so it's kind of like they're looking for each other. So this next one, I'm wondering what it is, because this is a picture on this page of Ghost Tracks that is of the inside of the car that Kate Johnson as well as Emmy hang out in a lot. So this one is called Let Sleeping Ghosts Lie. People get an uneasy feeling when they go too far. Dark corner of the museum. The old sleeper car back there seems unwelcoming, even hostile. They hear footsteps inside the car, sometimes heavy tromping, other times light scampering. They hear breathy whispering or what sounds like a child's voice saying "Papa." They see shadows that move about and reflections in the windows. It's unsettling enough that most people turn away. Whatever is in there doesn't want them to come in. It's just giving me goosebumps because I remember the first time I went onto this car, the feeling you get going up the stairs, you just feel anxiety. And then as you get in there, you feel claustrophobic. And then as you get to the back, more anxiety than heat on your face. And it's just insane, the energy that was in there before Kate was released. Okay, going back to the story. Maybe it's best to let sleeping ghosts lie. In the car's earliest day, that's what people did. They slept on hard wooden benches. families, immigrants, poor travelers who could afford only the most meager accommodations. And although it couldn't have been pleasant traveling long distances in this car, someone or something seems to have decided to stick around or can't leave. Then again, maybe the ghost or ghosts came along after sleeper cars became a thing of the past. The railroad converted it to a wreck car, not a particularly flattering name. It served as crew quarters out on the train route whenever there was a wreck. Workers might stay on the job for days, even weeks. There's a rumor that crew members once invited some ladies of the evening to visit. A lively card game led to an argument over cheating. A gun was drawn, shots were fired. Somehow, the story goes, one of those ladies still haunts the car. Whoever or whatever is there, the inhabitants keep themselves as long as the car stays inside the museum. They make noises, once in a while, cast shadows, or unnerve museum visitors, but nothing worse. Don't underestimate the ghost's temper or power. A few years back, the sleeper car had to be moved out to make room for the Silver Vista. I've heard this story. The museum curator, Jeff, told me this. Okay. So, to the sleeper car ghost, it must have felt a bit like urban renewal. The derelict car was moved to make room for the star of the fleet. The Silverton Vista is all metal and glass with large, comfortable seats, and people pay a premium to ride in it. It is upper crust compared to the wood and broken windows of the sleeper car. Railroad workers opened the big double doors, then moved the old sleeper car along the tracks and out of the museum. They parked it on a side track in the yard, out of the way and out of sight. No more cozy, warm corner in the big brick building, just the bitter cold snow and wind. Once the sleeper was out, they moved the gleaming Silver Vista inside. They all closed and latched the big doors and went home for the night. A puzzling sight greeted them the next morning. The doors stood wide open. The heavy metal latch and bolt lay on the snow. There were no footprints, only swing marks from the door, and broken hardware had distributed the fresh snow. At first, the workers thought the Silver Vista might have moved, rolled far enough to hit the doors and force them open, but it stood exactly where they had left it, several feet from the doors. Could there have been some kind of explosion, something so powerful that it blew the doors open and ripped off the hardware? Not likely. Nothing else in the museum was disturbed. Something had pushed against those doors specifically with tremendous force. 10 football players running at the door couldn't have pushed it open, one worker said in the silence of the big brick building that morning. Of course there hadn't been any football players in the museum overnight, not even one. Sometimes the museum's motion detector cameras captured images of small critters running through the building. Maybe there would be a clue in the video, something large and strong enough to force the big, heavy doors open. The worker found nothing, not a single recording from the previous night. Only one thing could have broken the hardware and thrown those doors open without leaving any trace in the snow. A temper tantrum, the worker decided, thrown by a very angry ghost who did not like being put out in the cold. The sleeper car was returned to the museum, parked in that dark corner with a caboose next to it, and there it remains. It's still there. It remains. I almost said remains. My Archie tried to come out. Oy. These days, the museum curator is very careful whenever he works on the car. He asks permission to go inside and explains what he's going to do. I hope you don't mind, he always adds, and they haven't so far. Yeah. That was an amazing investigation. It was one of the very first, and I think only investigation I've done early in the morning. So we went there for a preemptive strike, basically, to go and fill out the place and figure out how we're going to set up our equipment and such. And Jeff talked to us and showed us different videos and everything that they had captured and different pictures people had captured, and referred to her as Emmy. And So we went on there, set up our equipment. We had voice recorders. I also had my phone set on an app, and I know people poo-poo apps a lot, but we actually got a lot of awesome information from the Ghost Radar app, and it's Ghost Radar Legacy. If you pay, used to be 99 cents. I'm not sure. I think it's $1.99 now. But this version allows any words that come through to be recorded in a data bank. So we put everything in there besides what we're setting up on the outside of the cars and throughout the museum. And when we came back, there was just this plethora of information on my Ghost Radar Legacy. And it started off with the name Kate Johnson, Walter, Intention, Death, Sharp Tool. There's talk about snow, mittens, a rose, so many different things. So we gave this to Jeff, the museum curator, who has been such for so long. So I'm pretty sure when they're talking about him in this book, it's Jeff. And so we took the information, we did our homework, he did his, and of course, working on a rail line, he's able to get more information than we do because they have different directories and information and different things like that. And he got a hold of us and told us her name was Kate Johnson. She was a soiled dove from Alamosa, which is about an hour and a half or 2 hours away from where I'm at in Bayfield. About 15 minutes more if you're driving from Durango. Not sure what it was on a train, but she was from there. She was a working girl. She ended up falling in love with a firefighter who had fallen in love with her too, and he decided to sneak her on the train. They weren't allowed to have girls on there, but he snuck her on the train, and they were going to elope. And being that she was a working girl and she was very beautiful, she had been with several of the crew, and the brakeman, who I believe his name was Walter, I found them together during this train ride to, like they said, it was a wrecking car. Firefighters would go on there and go clean up the wreckage and whatever else. But he snuck her on there. They were going to elope, get married. Walter found them together. A fight ensued. He was not shot. He was stabbed to death. And they actually threw the brakeman from the train as it was going down the tracks. He didn't die. He actually received like a broken collarbone, something really minor. I don't think he even ever faced charges for this, but he is still there at the museum, as is Kate and Emmy. There is a ghost there named Emmy, and she's a little girl ghost. We were trying to figure out her name after Kate was released. And okay, so we'll go to Kate's story first. So the museum curator gives tours, and that's to school children and adults and families and whoever else might be coming through wanting to know about the railroad and the different cars that are in there and such. He said at first when he decided to tell these kids this story, he wasn't going to tell them the whole story because it's somewhat adult. But then something within him told him to be honest and tell them. And this was, of all things, a Catholic school class. And Kate Johnson, turns out, was Catholic. So he tells them the whole story, and that's why Kate is still there, because that's where her love was killed. And turns out the way she died, she tried to move on with her life. The madam took really good care of her because she was one of her best girls, and she had a really good madam, and she paid for her to go to California to start a new life. Kate went out there, tried to move on with her life, but couldn't. She just felt so guilty. Had she not been there that night, this would have never happened to her love. And so she ended up killing herself by ingesting muriatic acid, is what I was told. But then, being Catholic, believing in purgatory, and believing that, suicide is one of the worst sins, she was basically stuck there in her own purgatory, where her love had died, which led to her suicide. So that was her little prison there. And like I said, you would get all those different feelings going on in this train car. We actually captured several FLIR pictures. We've captured pictures of the brakeman, of Kate, of legs. And the brakeman's been captured on photo as well as Kate several times. But anywho's, going back to this Catholic school class, they heard this story and they decided to say a prayer. So Jeff is walking off of the car, the sleeper car, and the way the cars are when you're walking, they'll move back and forth. And so he felt this movement and he felt like the class was following him. And he gets down the stairs and he turns around and there's no kids behind him. And he started back up the stairs to go in and get them. And at this point, he heard them saying a prayer. And he, as well, is Catholic. And he said he had never heard this prayer. And come to find out, it was a prayer of release from purgatory. And I didn't even know about this class going in, what had happened. I showed up about a week later to check on Jeff and see how things were going after our investigation and, you know, if he'd gotten anything else. And he'd gotten some video of, like, lights and stuff moving through the museum, but he said he had told me the story about the Catholic school class and the prayer they said, and that he feels like she's gone. And he really loved her. He really cared about her a lot and was very protective of her. I think had it not been for him, they would not have moved that sleeper car back in after it threw its fit, and it did. That's what hit the doors. It had to hit the doors several times for it to bust open. They don't share everything because of the way people treat hauntings for the most part, but yeah. If it weren't for Jeff, it wouldn't be back in there and being protected and taken care of. It's just amazing. But anywho's, we tried to figure out, okay, so going back again, I almost skipped ahead. So I go in there, and like I was telling you before when you'd go up the stairs, you'd feel this sense of anxiety, and you'd go in and you'd feel a sense of claustrophobia. Then when you go into the portion where they supposedly had the card game, and there's still poker cards and everything laid out for a poker game. But you feel immense anxiety, a sense of anger or foreboding, and sadness. And then once you get to the back of the car, you feel heat on your face. And I don't know if it was like her reaction with the panic and adrenaline or whatnot that was going on when she's witnessing this, or is it because that's where the stove used to be? And there's two stoves, one wood, one in the other corner, and back here is the cooking stove. So I don't know. I go in there after he tells me what happens to see if she's still there, if I pick up on any energy, and nothing. Going up the stairs, nothing. Going through the door, nothing. Going into the back, nothing. And I went back out and I was like, Jeff, it's really weird, but I don't feel her there. And he's like, man, you know, I didn't want to get rid of her. Like, if she wanted to stay here, I was willing to let her stay and cohabitate with her and whatnot. He really cared a lot about her. And so you could see he was feeling bummed. He was feeling down about it. 3 months later, she came back. In the meantime, my team and I, Four Corners Paranormal Investigations, got to put in that little hook there, we went in to communicate with Emmy because we'd had several run-ins with her and to try to figure out what her story is. And when I read this tonight and it said Papa, I kind of picked up on that before. Like, I think she's looking for her dad, her mom or her dad. I think her dad used to work on the railroad, and I think she got hurt in the train yard. I think that's how she died, looking for her papa, and she ended up getting ran over or something. So there's a little clue. But we tried to go in there to figure out what was going on with her, and communication was going amazingly, and then all of a sudden, Walter and his bastard ass comes in, cussing, threatening her, telling her to go away, not to talk to us, and so she did. She ran away, and then he was there for a while, being a jerk and insulting and trying to run the show. But yeah, we cut him off. We decided not to investigate there till we could figure out how to get rid of him. At that point, we brought in an AKA or, known as a rescue medium who is sent to help spirits to the other side. And we bring him in, and so Walter mostly hangs out on the cinema car. That's his car. The immigrant car or the sleeper car is Kate and Emmy's. And they're not stuck there. They can move wherever, but that's where they prefer to be. That's their safe spot. Walter hangs out in the cinema car right next door. That's where people go in and watch movies and such at the railroad about the history of so on and so forth. And I took this guy on there, and we make contact with Walter. And of course, he's crude, rude, jerk. And this guy, I believe you know him as Ron Sherman, was talking to him and said, no, he doesn't want to leave, and I can't make him, so there's really nothing I can do. And I'm like, seriously? Like, if ever there was a ghost that needed to be removed from somewhere, this would be it. But no, he wouldn't do it. So I'm just like, it was just a pain in the booty. Pain in the booty Trudy. So let me see if I can find a quick story in here. I know the one in Silverton I like. Let me just look in the front here and see where Silverton is. There we are, page 12. Oh, Baker's Bridge. What a beautiful place. Bear with me. Alright, so that is 12. That doesn't really give an intro to Silverton for some reason. That is really weird. What the heck? Is this thing messing with me? Wow. Okay, so... Silverton is the embodiment of a boomtown, swinging from good fortune to bad and back more than most communities could endure. This small town, nestled in the core of a collapsed volcano, is a survivor. Businesses of every kind thrived in its early years, especially after the Denver and Rio Grande Railroad arrived in 1882. Life revolved around the railroad. It brought sustenance and it provided escape for those who gave up. In Silverton's heyday, there were 10 times as many people living there as there are today. The town hummed with optimism. If one business enterprise failed, all a man had to do was try another. And if nothing else worked, there was always room for another saloon, especially if it included sporting women. For the more refined residents, there were opera houses and skating rinks, a library, and a community brass band. The sounds of music and laughter emanated from just about every part of town. Silverton wasn't all gaiety and glory. Even in its prime, danger was a part of life for everyone who lived there. From these glorious mountains and from the fellow inhabitants, as well as from the outside world. Prospecting and mining were hazardous work. All too often, problems were solved with guns, though the solution rarely brought accord. Economic forces beyond anyone's control sent Silverton or silver prices plummeting and wiped out fortunes overnight. Winters were long, cold, and often fraught with perils. For each person who enjoyed great success, there were several who failed miserably. Some fled, some kept looking for the next big strike, some had nowhere else to go. Disease stalked the people of Silverton too, no matter what their social standing. The Spanish flu epidemic alone killed more than 10% of the population in 1918 and 1919, and silicosis, commonly known as miner's consumption, claimed far more through the years. Children died of cholera, scarlet fever, and a multitude of other exotically named maladies. People froze to death trying to bring food and supplies to town or were buried alive in avalanches. Is it any wonder that this town is a hotbed of ghostly activity, or that some of those ghosts frequent the depot? So I don't think we have time to get into a story, and we'll go back to this at a later date when I'm deciding to spend some time alone with my fellow Wapham peeps. But one of the stories that I had heard while doing some investigating of my own was that there was a woman and her husband worked on the railroad, and there were some issues as far as falling trees and snow and how many taken out by Tommy knockers, said Robert. I don't know. That's a good question. Excuse me. But yeah, there was this lady that was in the train house there in Silverton during the terrible frigid winter. I think she was waiting for her husband who worked the railroad to get back. There was issues as far as fallen trees and snowbanks and such that had built up over the train tracks. You have to clear those off. That's why they have lead cars that come through and make sure it's clean. But winters are pretty bad up there. They get a lot of snow, a lot of ice, a lot of fallen trees because the trees are immense up there. And she just sat at this window and waited. She ran out of wood first and then later ran out of food. So she ended up perishing there in Silverton, but her ghost is known to be there. I believe it was my teammate Jamie that had told me about her and let me know of that haunting. We actually got to do an investigation for the world's largest ghost hunt there in Silverton at the Grand Imperial, which has been through so many different stages in its life, and it's been a hotel, used to be a post office and mining offices as far as treasury and such. It's changed hands so many times, but we picked up so much stuff there during our investigation. And I even heard the old miner that hangs out there, they call him Yellow Eyes or something like that. He's got these golden yellow eyes and he walks around in boots and generally sits at the bar. Heard him tromping around and I woke up Mel. I'm like, Mel, do you hear that? And she was hearing it too. I'm like, what the heck do you think that is? She's like, oh, it's probably the owner, Jim. You know, he said he gets up in the middle of the night and he'll come down and make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And I'm like, dude, if you get up in the middle of the night to sneak to the kitchen to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, are you seriously going to put your boots on instead of your house shoes or your socks or something? That is not Jim. We got to go investigate. So we did. We went up there and we looked around. First place we checked, kitchen, no Jim there. Then we heard noise coming from like the dining room area, which is right next door to the saloon. And yeah, no Jim to be seen. So I didn't sleep very good that night. Everybody else went to sleep. They were touched. Mel woke up. She thought I touched her. It wasn't me. And then Cheryl, while me and Mel were up talking about it, she got touched too on her hip. Mel was touched on the shoulder, and neither one of us touched her. And she's like, oh my gosh, that was so weird. And of course, right back to sleep she went. But I was just feeling the energy, and I just could not bring myself to go to sleep. But thank you guys so much for hanging out with me tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Again, rest in peace, Mr. Larry King. You know, like us. I think it was Mooney had said earlier, he was a true pioneer, really epic, awesome guy. I really enjoyed him. We're going to miss you. And thank you to all of our friends on We Are Paradox Media's Facebook, Spreaker, Twitter, Periscope, iHeartRadio, and wherever else beyond the Omniverse you were listening tonight. I had a wonderful time, and I can't wait to do it again next weekend when on Saturday we have the Paradox Paranormal Forum. And then on Sunday, we have Roots and Wings Paranormal coming on. It's going to be an epic weekend. You won't have to be stuck with just little old me anymore. We'll have to move on from our personal close relationship that we've built this month. You guys don't forget, we are all in this together. Together, we can make the world a little better. And together, my friends, we are Paradox Media, because without you, there is no us. I want to take some time out of my outro and say, you guys come on out. Mondays, we got Coffee and a Chat with Sleepy Dave Davenport. Then on Fridays, we got Doc Skinner with 1028 Live. We did have somebody going for Wednesdays, but that didn't work out. I want to thank our sponsors, because we couldn't do it without you. We got Mr. Jim Morris, Mr. Kevin McDougall, Del Elson, Mia Savage, as well as our musical host, who has given us all of our music for our breaks. Thank you, Mr. Roy Washington of Quest Nation and Prime Example. If you guys want to join us for our Skype after party, look me up at tessa.n.thomas30 or give us a jangle at 970-335-9596. Nighty night, love and light. Take care of my yous.